Chapter 1004. The atmosphere was so quiet that it was a little strange. Lily had not looked at him until now, as if he did not exist. Yi Qianqian was a little scared, and her hand that was opening the door was shaking. Finally, Yi Qianqian opened the door and breathed a sigh of relief. She immediately slipped in, but when Lily was about to go in, Ming suddenly took her hand behind her and said, Let's talk." Lily tried to pull her hand back, but she couldn't. She turned her head and looked at Ming. Under Ming's eyes, there was a layer of light blue compared to a few days ago, and he looked a little tired. On his clean and white face, there was a serious look. Lily slightly raised her lips and smiled. "There is nothing to talk about between us, Master O. You think too highly of me." There was a smile in her voice and words. There was not the slightest bit of unfriendliness in his tone. In fact, there was even a hint of flattery. However, in Ming's ears, he felt that there was an indescribable sarcasm. It seemed that Lily was mocking him, and he felt very uncomfortable. Ming's eyes were deeper, and there was a trace of displeasure in his beautiful peach blossom eyes. He said, "Talk properly. Is there anything wrong with me talking like this?" Lily's voice was a little sharp, and even Yi Qianqian felt that her tone was asking for a beating, let alone Ming. Ming's eyes were gloomy, and he held her hand tighter and said, "I miss you so much." Yi Qianqian was abused and silently hid aside. Lily's heart was choked, and her eyes were slightly hot. She couldn't maintain the smile on her face, and she tried to pull her hand back, but Ming didn't let go. Ming stared at her. His peach blossom eyes, which used to be casual and elegant, were now deep. His dark brown pupils seemed to contain a lake, sparkling with the light. "Master O, it's not good for us to be like this." She looked at him with a distant and polite smile on her face. "You're going to get married. Your fiancé just gave me an invitation, but I forgot to take it. But when you get married, it's better for me not to be there, right?" The smile on Lily's face grew brighter and brighter. She looked at Ming and said, "After all, I'm your former mistress. I'm not even your ex-girlfriend. What kind of identity should I attend the wedding? Even I didn't expect it." Ming's heart ached. He held her hand tightly and said, "There won't be a wedding. Lily, give me some more time. I will do what I said." He had said that he would marry her and make her his wife. But he couldn't do it, could he? The Shun family and the O family were well matched in social status, and Ming's mother liked Shin Manting very much. What reason did he have not to marry her? Lily had nothing, and now she was suffering from sexual apathy. She couldn't give him physical pleasure at all. At best, she could only give him psychological satisfaction. He had a mistress on his left and a wife on his right. What a good life. Lily smiled and pulled her hand back. "No, Master O, I don't dare to expect those things you said. I only have one request for you now." Ming narrowed his eyes and seemed to have guessed something. Chapter 1005. Entangled. Ming's heart seemed to be squeezed tightly, and he couldn't help but feel pain. Lily's smile widened, and she said, "You're going to make me feel awkward. When other people ask me, 'Hey, Lily, who is this to you?' I won't be able to answer them. Do you know that?" As she said that, Lily's eyes became redder. She tried to smile and gently put her hand on his palm. "So don't continue." Lily pulled his hand away, and her smile was a little stiff. Ming let go of her hand, but raised his hand to hold her shoulder. He clasped her head with his palm, bowed his head, and kissed her lips. Lily was shocked by his unexpected action, and her heart suddenly jumped. Ming's hand climbed up her waistline, and he gently sucked her lips, gently and lovingly. Such a kiss had nothing to do with lust. It was just a light kiss, and then he released her. "In the future, I won't let you be unable to answer." Ming stroked her face with his big hand, and his voice was soft. Lily pushed him away and turned her head. Then, she quickly entered the house and closed the door. Yi Qianqian saw Lily come in and blinked. Lily's eyes were red, and when she saw Yi Qianqian's look, she smiled. "Are you in a cold war?" Yi Qianqian looked at her and asked, "Cold war?" When a couple or a husband and wife ignored each other because of a quarrel, it was called a cold war. But she and Ming They were not a couple, nor a husband and wife, were they? When Lily heard that, she sneered and said, "There is no Cold War. It's just a breakup." After that, Lily walked into her room. Seeing that, Yi Qianqian sighed and said, "Ask the world, what is love? It makes people live and die for each other." For a period of time, Ming didn't appear again. Lily began to take on the work of the editor, and her performance was much worse than Yi Qianqian's. She was praised by editor-in-chief Zhou several times, and she even held a celebration party for her. After old Mrs. Shun stopped pestering her, Shun Julia's pursuit became more and more aggressive. In the past, he would only wait for her at the company after work, but recently, it had evolved into squatting at the entrance of the neighborhood. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Lily would be followed by Shun Julia. Shun Julia smiled brightly and said, "Hello, you're running in the morning too? What a coincidence." Lily just wanted to laugh, so she mercilessly exposed him. "The neighborhood you live in is half an hour's drive from here. You run really fast. Awesome." Shun Julia didn't seem to realize that he had been ridiculed. He laughed out loud and even looked a little proud of himself. He said, well said. Shall we have breakfast together later?" "No, I'm going to buy one for Qianqian." "Okay, then I'll go to your house to eat." Shun Julia replied calmly, "That's all. I'll take you to work afterward. It's on the way." "What bullsh asterisk T?" She rolled her eyes at him and quickened her pace. Shun Julia was tall and had long legs, so he easily caught up with her. He overtook her by half and said, "By the way, has the illness you went to see improved?" Sexual apathy. Chapter 1006. Are you concerned about me? Shun Julia raised his eyebrows proudly. He was not discouraged when Lily rolled her eyes at him. "That's our hospital. I can go if I want. I'll come back after a formality. You don't have to be so serious." "Oh, really? That's great." Obviously, she didn't want to continue the conversation. Shun Julia quickly changed the topic and said, "To be honest, your problem can't be ignored. If a woman has this problem, it must be treated." Lily didn't answer. She panted and ran faster. Lily stared at the front, but as she ran, her stomach became more and more painful. Frowning, Lily slowed down a little. Shun Julia followed her very easily and said, "I'm serious. Maybe it will cause menstruation. If it is more serious, it may cause problems with the uterus. It is obviously a psychological factor, but the body is closely related to the mood, so it can't be ignored. I happen to be free recently, so I'll treat it for you." "Shut up," Lily roared. Her stomach hurt even more. She turned her head and shouted, "You're so noisy." Shun Julia immediately shut up and looked at her figure in a very good mood. But he found that Lily's footsteps were getting slower and slower. Shun Julia followed her. Seeing Lily like this, he slightly raised his eyebrows and asked, "What's wrong?" Lily frowned and shook her head. Her lower abdomen was cramping. She took a breath, but the original pain became more painful. Lily couldn't help but squat down holding her stomach. Seeing her like this, Shun Julia also knew that the situation couldn't be underestimated. He reached out and touched her forehead. It was very cold, and there was a thin layer of cold sweat. Lily's breathing became more and more rapid. Her body seemed to be pressed by a heavy weight. She reached out and grabbed his hand. Shun Julia was even more shocked and asked, "What's wrong?" Lily's eyes became darker and darker, and her head became heavier and heavier. Lily pushed him away, turned her head, and vomited. However, she only vomited a few mouthfuls of water and stomach acid. Shun Julia saw that, patted her on the back, and said, "You can't do this. I'll take you to the hospital." Lily didn't answer. She squatted on the ground and felt dizzy. It took a while for him to recover. Lily grabbed Shun Julia's hand with both of her hands and helped him stand up. Her head was dizzy, and she was about to fall. Shun Julia picked her up in his arms and ran to the back. He placed her in his car and drove to a nearby hospital. The seats in the car were made of white leather. When he picked her up from the seat, Shun Julia noticed the red stain on the seat. Lily squinted her eyes and looked half asleep. She looked very uncomfortable. Shun Julia finally understood that the woman was on her period. However, would there be such a big reaction during menstruation? All of the girlfriends he had had in the past were still full of energy during their periods. At most, they would pretend to be weak and weak. This was the first time Shinjilia had seen someone like this. Chapter 1007. Shinjilia was a little confused. He thought for a moment and turned to look at Yulili. Yulili was lying on the bed, weak, and her eyes were blacking out. Hearing this, she said, "Yes, I had a miscarriage." Abortion or medical abortion? Medical abortion. Well, women should take care of their own bodies. Medical abortion is the most harmful to the body. You haven't recovered yet. How many times has it been like today? Yulili looked at the ceiling dizzily and said, "I don't know how many times, but occasionally it's better than this situation." The doctor gave Yulili some medicine and said, "Have you seen a doctor? This kind of situation should be taken seriously. You can't underestimate it. Maybe you can't get pregnant. You need to find a Chinese medicine practitioner to take good care of it." Then she looked at Shinjilia with some blame and said, "A man should look after a woman and take care of her. How could she not recover?" After the infusion, Yulili's head was buzzing. When she heard the doctor's words, she had no strength and spirit. She slowly closed her eyes and fell asleep unconsciously. When she woke up, Shinjilia was at the bedside. Seeing Yulili wake up, he seemed a little surprised and said, "You're awake? I just made brown sugar water. Drink some." Yulili blinked and looked at Shinjilia, feeling a little confused. Then she remembered something and was shocked, shouting, "What time is it now?" "It's after 10 o'clock." Shinjilia looked at his watch, but when he saw Yulili's horrified look, he laughed and said, "Don't worry. Yi Qianqian has already asked for leave for you and explained the situation. What do you want to eat? I'll buy it for you." Yulili breathed a sigh of relief, but her lower abdomen still hurt. Hearing Shinjilia's words, she shook her head. Just then, there was only a little medicine left. The nurse then pulled out the needle, and Shinjilia helped Yulili up. Yulili had been lying for more than 2 hours and felt much better, but she still had no strength, and her lower abdomen hurt. Today, she was wearing a light blue sports suit, and there was a red mark on the back of her body. Shinjilia saw it, took off his coat, and wrapped it around her waist, saying, "I'll take you back. Can you walk?" "Sure. Thank you." Yulili put her hand on his and said, "I'll walk slowly." Shinjilia didn't force her. He helped her out of the hospital. However, just as he walked out of the hospital, he saw a Bentley driving over. Yulili accidentally glanced at the license plate number and was stunned. She looked up and saw Oming getting out of the car. At that moment, Shinjilia's arms were circling around Yulili's. He held her hands with both of his hands, as if he was protecting a treasure. Yulili also had a men's sports coat tied around her waist. Oming's face darkened. He quickly walked up to her and reached out his hand to grab Yulili without saying a word. However, Shinjilia was quick to react. He quickly held Yulili in his arms and looked at him with a warning look. "What do you want to do?" Yulili was held tightly in Shinjilia's arms. She was caught off guard and looked up at Shinjilia. Shinjilia's face was unspeakably serious. Vaguely, he looked at Oming with a hint of warning and hostility. Chapter 1008. Hearing that, Shinjilia laughed. His laughter was clear, with obvious unhappiness. Yulili could clearly feel the vibration of his vocal cords. She wanted to push him away, but her whole body was tightly held, and it was difficult to raise her strength. "I say, brother-in-law, are you mistaken? Shouldn't your woman be my sister, Shinmanting? Now Yulili is my girlfriend. Are you trying to steal my future brother-in-law's woman?" Shinjilia's voice was full of laughter. He raised his eyebrows and looked at him with sarcasm and disdain. When Yulili heard that, her eyes widened. She looked up at him and shouted, "Shinjilia, don't talk." Shinjilia lowered his head and looked at her with endless tenderness in his eyes. "Anyway, you have broken up. It's better to make some things clear. Every time he comes to pester you, you feel very annoyed, don't you?" "Yes." However, at the same time, there was a strange feeling. She loved him, but she minded that he was not hers alone. She wanted to see him, but she couldn't accept that he was engaged to another woman at the same time. The inexplicable relationship between them was the most confusing. When Oming heard Shinjilia's words, He was so angry that he laughed. He looked at you, Lily, and said in a cold voice, "I heard that you asked for sick leave. What's wrong with you?" Her face was pale, and she snuggled in Jean-Julia's arms like an ordinary little woman, like a little bird. She was completely different from when she was facing him. "It has nothing to do with you, brother-in-law." Jean-Julia hugged her, and the smile on his face was sinister. "Why do you care so much? My sister is the one who is planning the wedding. If you have the time to care about other women, you might as well take care of your own business. Don't end up in a mess." While speaking, Jean-Julia walked forward with you, Lily, in his arms and said, "I'm also doing it for your own good, brother-in-law." Ming stretched out his arms and put them in front of him, but his eyes fell on you, Lily. His pair of peach blossom eyes were full of doubt and disbelief. He asked, "Is it true?" You, Lily, leaned against Jean-Julia's arms, and her face was pale. Hearing Ming's obviously uncertain words, her heart was beating fast. Really? What would happen to him if what she said was true? If what she said wasn't true, then there was no doubt that Ming would go back and forth and worry about both sides. As for her, she was still Ming's woman, a pitiful mistress whom everyone looked down upon. Lily looked at him and hugged him tightly. She buried her face in his chest and whispered, "Let's go. I feel terrible." There was no direct answer. He did not say it was true, nor did he say it was false. But in Ming's eyes, such an attitude was tantamount to a tacit agreement. Jean-Julia's big eyes were shining. He raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Ming in front of him. He said, "Sorry, brother-in-law, you are in the way." He tried to push Ming's hand away, but Ming twisted it and grabbed Jean-Julia's hand. He looked at you, Lily, in anger and sneered. "I haven't seen you for 2 days, and you can't wait to throw yourself into the arms of another man. You, Lily, are you so lonely?" His ruthless and sharp words were like thousands of sharp blades stabbing into you, Lily's heart, ruthless and decisive. Chapter 1009. He was really angry, but what did it have to do with her? When you, Lily, heard Ming's words, she laughed and said, "Mr. O, did you make a mistake?" Ming was even angrier when he heard that. He looked at her and said nothing. "We broke up a long time ago, didn't we?" You, Lily, looked at him expressionlessly, and her body felt weak. Even if she wanted to make a disdainful expression, she felt too weak to do so. "Now, the person who pesters me is you, and the person who wants to marry me is you. In the past, it was you who ended the relationship first. Why do you have the final say? I will also be tired, Ming." As she said that, she closed her eyes and leaned on Jean-Julia's chest. "I didn't agree." Ming looked at her. She was obviously uncomfortable, and her face was pale. Ming felt sad. "I didn't agree, you, Lily. The reason why I let you go is that I want you to calm down. I didn't want you to break up with me." "Huh, you think too highly of yourself." You, Lily, smiled gently. She was indescribably weak, but the words she said were like cold and sharp, stabbing into Ming's heart. You, Lily. Ming was furious, but when he saw her like this, he forcibly suppressed his anger and reached out his hand. "Give her to me." But how could Jean-Julia be obedient? Holding you, Lily, Jean-Julia clearly noticed that you, Lily, was about to lose her strength again. His face darkened, and he shouted, "Go away. Don't you see that she is uncomfortable? You made her so uncomfortable for 4 years, and now you don't let her go back to rest. How dare you say you love her? Ming, you are so shameless." Jean-Julia carried you, Lily, in his arms and strode in the direction of his car. Ming was left standing in the same place, and his head was buzzing. So uncomfortable for 4 years. What does that mean? He carefully put her in the back seat of the car and let her lie down. After Jean-Julia put her down, he went to the driver's seat and started the car. In front, Ming came over and stood beside the car, his eyes staring at you, Lily, in the back seat. Jean-Julia sneered, looked away, and whispered, "You are so shameless." You, Lily, heard it clearly in the back. She squinted her eyes and leaned against the car. When they got home, Jean-Julia took out the keys from her pocket and keyed in the password before gently placing her on the bed. After boiling some water, Jean-Julia rummaged through the entire kitchen and finally found some brown sugar. He made some brown sugar water for her and blew on it to cool it down before helping her drink it. Yu Lily knew that the man was Shun Jilia, and she felt guilty. He opened his eyes and said, "You go back first. I can do it alone." "No, I haven't eaten yet. We agreed to eat together." Shun Jilia glanced at his watch. It was already past 11 o'clock. He clicked his tongue and said, "But I'm afraid breakfast is out of the question. What do you want to eat for lunch?" "What are you doing?" Shun Jilia's face reddened. He coughed lightly and said, "I'll go buy it. I don't know how to cook." Yu Lily smiled and shook her head. "I can't eat. Then I'll just buy something. When I ring the doorbell later, you can open the door for me." "All right." Shun Jilia was secretly happy to hear her answer. Normally, no matter how much he shouted or knocked on the door, the two women wouldn't open it. The doorbell continued to ring. Yu Lily looked at him, looked at his hand, and said indifferently, "My boyfriend is outside. It's not good for you to do this. Yes or no?" Ming was very persistent. He looked at her, and his hand tightened. Chapter 10:11. "I don't believe it," Ming said coldly. He looked at her slightly evasive eyes and sneered. "You really can't lie. Do you think I will believe it just because you say it casually? Deceiving yourself." Yu Lily was a little annoyed and struggled with her hands. "He's much better than you. At least he wouldn't force me to do something I don't want to do when I'm in such pain. He's not like you, self-righteous and deceiving yourself like a fool." Yu Lily was a little annoyed. Ming's heart was choked, and his hand holding her was unconsciously tightened. Yu Lily wailed and shouted, "It hurts so much. My waist and stomach." Ming was shocked and immediately released his hand. Yu Lily bent down with a painful look on her face, holding her stomach. "Does it hurt?" "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it." At the same time, the door was opened. Shun Jilia came in with the key in his hand. When he saw Ming, his face sank. He quickly walked over to Yu Lily's side and placed the things that he had bought with great difficulty on the coffee table. He helped Yu Lily up and gently said, "How are you feeling? Take a break first. I'll help you in." Ming gritted his teeth and went forward to push Shun Jilia away. Shun Jilia was caught off guard and was pushed to the side. They looked at each other and saw anger in each other's eyes. "What are you doing here? You are not welcome here." Shun Jilia looked at him and said word by word. He helped Yu Lily up and whispered, "Does it hurt? Is it that guy's fault again?" "That guy? Is he talking about me?" Ming laughed and looked at Shun Jilia. His eyes were like a storm raging. When he was about to speak, he heard Yu Lily said, "Yes, it's this guy's fault." Yu Lily bent down and did not look up. Her voice was indescribably weak. Shun Jilia was distressed. He held her and said, "I will take you in to rest." "I didn't mean it." Ming looked at Yu Lily and felt a little guilty. "I'm sorry, Yu Lily. I believe you didn't mean it, but..." Yu Lily seemed to chuckle, looked up at him, and said slowly, "The damage has been done, hasn't it?" Ming's heart was shocked. The hurt in Yu Lily's eyes in front of him was so strange that it was not like her. "You didn't do it on purpose, but have you ever thought about my feelings?" Yu Lily looked at him, and her eyes became redder. "You only know what you want and what you don't want. Have you ever thought about what I want and what I don't want?" Yu Lily looked at him with tears in her eyes. "No, you haven't thought about any of them. You're high and mighty. You're insufferably arrogant. You were born with a golden spoon in your mouth. You're the only son of the O clan. You've had everything you wanted since you were a child. In fact, you've been able to turn over the clouds and reign in the O clan. You've been living like a crown prince since you were a child. But so what? She was an orphan who had nothing. Since she was young, she knew that she had to carefully pretend to be obedient. Only in this way could she get candy and make the adults like her. But Ming didn't need to. He just needed to curl his index finger and he could get anything. They didn't belong to the same world. So how could they be together? The gap between them couldn't be made up by a few years of being a mistress and a few years of famous brands. "I don't care. Do you think I'm with you just for money? You regard me as your mistress, a moving inflatable doll. That's all. Do you think your pestering is true love?" Yu Lily laughed and looked at him sarcastically. "This is called being cheap, Mr. O." Ming smiled and looked at her sarcastically. Chapter 10:12. This is called being cheap. Her sharp words pierced Ming's heart. Ming looked at her with a complicated expression. His heart couldn't help but feel a little sour and a little painful. I didn't. Ming gritted his teeth and roared. You Lily, don't I know how I treat you? Of course I know. You Lily looked at him and smiled slightly. But do you really know how you treat me? He had always thought that he was good to her. Indeed, very good. But it was not what you Lily wanted. What do you mean? You know it in your heart. You Lily smiled and closed her eyes tiredly. I don't want to play this boring game with you anymore. Go, Ming. I don't want to be with you. I really don't want to. You Lily leaned on Shun Julia and slightly tilted her head, buried in his chest, and said, Please leave and don't come back in the future. You Lily was exhausted by the time she finished yelling. Shun Julia hugged her tightly, looked at Ming with a cold face, and shouted, Didn't you hear me? Please leave. After that, Shun Julia carried Yu Lily into her room. He put Yu Lily down and looked down at her. He found that her face was already wet. Her pale face was glistening with tears. It was very beautiful, like a rose that was about to wither. Yu Lily was the toughest woman he had ever seen. She was not the most beautiful, but she was unique and fascinating. Shun Julia had had many girlfriends, but none of them made him feel so sorry. Ming is a bastard. After settling her down and gently covering her with a quilt, Shun Julia sat on her bed and didn't go out again. Yu Lily closed her eyes for a long time and asked, Is he gone? I don't know. Shun Julia didn't go out. He looked at Yu Lily and asked, Are you still uncomfortable? Yes, I'm hungry. Shun Julia chuckled and said, I'll bring the food in to eat. Okay. Yu Lily still didn't open her eyes. Shun Julia got up and went out. He didn't know when Ming had left, but there was a note on the table. On it, there were beautiful and bold words written by Ming. Wait for me. Shun Julia's heart sank when he heard those two words. This guy still hasn't given up. He tore up the note and tossed it into the trash can. He brought the takeout he had just bought in and pretended as if nothing had happened. He smiled and took out the food. It was past 7 o'clock in the evening when Shun Luo and received Ming's message. Ming's message was very simple. Let's make a deal. Shun Luo and glanced at the message and replied, I'm in Kingstown. See you tomorrow. He tossed his phone aside and looked at Yi Yu. Yi Yu was a little scared. Looking at Shun Luo, and in front of her, her heart was beating fast. She shouted, Brother Luo, are you afraid now? Shun Luo and took a step forward and looked at the layout of the surroundings. You're going to let Grandma live in a shabby place like this? Don't you know that Grandma is in poor health? Shun Luo and looked at her with a gloomy expression. Yi Yu didn't dare to look up. She lowered her face and mumbled, Don't you know that Grandma is not very smart? Brother Luoan, Grandma asked me to bring her here. I also. Chapter 10:13. When Yi Yu heard this, she shrank her shoulders and did not dare to refute. Shun Luo and looked at Yi Yu with some disappointment and said, Yi Yu, I thought you would at least be a little more sensible after being a manager for so many years. I didn't expect you to be the same as before. Do you think you can please Grandma by doing this? Yes, she couldn't. Moreover, such a Yi Yu would make people feel more annoyed and annoyed. Yi Yu was well aware of this, but she didn't realize it until old Mrs. Shun was taken back. I'm afraid that she didn't want to come to Kingstown, and she really wanted to exclude me. After Yi Yu thought through everything, she felt more and more uncomfortable. The old lady was really unscrupulous in order to drive me away from the Shun family. Now, even Shun Luo, and looking at Yi Yu's aggrieved look, Shun Luo, and felt even more angry. He sneered and said, Who are you showing this to now? Do you think I dare not scold you when I see you like this? No, Brother Luo, and this time it's my fault. Yi Yu lowered her head and looked at the ground. There won't be a next time. Seeing Yi Yu's look, Shun Luo and shook his head gently and said, Forget it. As he spoke, he picked up the coat on the sofa and then walked out of the door. Yi Yu had expected that he would not stay in her house for the night, but she still felt a little disappointed when she saw this scene. She asked, Where are you going? Do I need to report to you where I go? Shun Luo and glanced at her with a faint smile. We are husband and wife. Yes, husband and wife. Shen Luo and chuckled, but he did not care about the identity of husband and wife at all. He put on his coat and walked outside. Shen Luo and opened the door, went out, and closed the door. This series of movements was smooth, without any hesitation or pause. Yi Yu was disappointed and sat on the sofa. He had always been like this. He was waiting for her to be unable to bear it and ask for a divorce. Perhaps it was just an obsession when she was young. From a very young age, Yi Yu told everyone that she would marry brother Luo, and when she grew up. When they were young, Shen Luo would also respond with a smile and say, "Okay, then when you grow up, you will be my bride." Even when they were in school, Shen Luo didn't treat them like this. However, since when did everything change? Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Yi Qianqian walked toward the door while applying a facial mask. When he opened the door, he saw a big man. When Shen Julia saw Yi Qianqian, he smiled brightly and said, "Good afternoon on the weekend. Let's have afternoon tea together." Yi Qianqian touched the mask on her face and didn't say a word. She turned around and went back to browsing Weibo on the sofa. Ever since Yu Lily almost fainted during her morning run a few days ago, her relationship with Shen Julia had changed. In the past, Shen Julia had often come to look for Yu Lily, but he hadn't even been able to enter the door. However, it was completely different now. Not only did they visit frequently, but even the treatment they received was completely different. Chapter 10:14. Shen Julia brought the snacks in and put them on the table. He asked, "Where is Lily?" Drawing in the room, Yi Qianqian said with her eyes squinted. Shen Julia walked slowly to the door of Yu Lily's room and knocked on the door. Yu Lily thought it was Yi Qianqian, so she shouted without looking up, "Come in." However, it was another person who opened the door and came in. Yu Lily was a little surprised. When she saw him, she said, "Why are you here again? Didn't you say you had something to do?" "Well, I'm done." Shen Julia walked in and walked behind Yu Lily to watch her draw. But when she saw the male lead, an obscure expression flashed across her face. On the screen, the male lead was sitting on the sofa. His long legs and unusually long fingers were holding a cigar. He was wearing a burgundy suit, and the shape of his eyes was beautiful and long. When he squinted slightly, he looked indescribably lifelike and lifelike. "Oming?" Shen Julia felt a little strange, but at the same time, he felt a little frustrated. Yu Lily's words were harsh, but she couldn't let go of Oming. "Let's go out to eat. I bought some snacks and desserts. Let's have afternoon tea together." Shen Julia leaned closer and whispered in her ear. Yu Lily was very focused on drawing. After she answered casually, she didn't stop. After she finished the dialogue with the male lead, Yu Lily stopped. However, when she turned her head, she saw Shen Julia looking at her attentively from behind. Yu Lily was shocked, but then, when she met Shen Julia's burning eyes, she couldn't help but blush. She reached out and slapped his face, shouting, "Pervert! Why are you so close to me?" Shen Julia was slapped, but he didn't look angry at all. He quietly smiled and said, "Let's go." Yu Lily was embarrassed. Shen Julia is really a master at picking up girls. Even Yu Lily was captivated. Yu Lily had to admit that she was impressed by his tricks. Seeing Shen Julia go out, Yu Lily relaxed a little. Recently, Shen Julia had been taking care of her meticulously. This was something she had never experienced when she was with Oming. Oming was too overbearing. Many times, he did everything without considering her feelings. Shen Julia was the exact opposite. No matter what he did, he would always consider Yu Lily's feelings, which made her feel very comfortable. At the same time, he felt extremely guilty. She did not have any feelings for him. Not having feelings can be cultivated. When you and Oming first got together, didn't you also have feelings? Just last night, when she told Yi Qianqian about it, Yi Qianqian had said the best way to get out of a relationship is to start another one. You draw comics yourself. Surely you know this, don't you? Yi Qianqian, after taking 2 deep breaths, Yu Lily walked out. When he went out, Yi Qianqian was already eating. She held a cup of milk tea in her hand and a black forest cake in front of her. She was staring at her phone in shock. Yu Lily's face was still warm. She picked up a cup of milk tea, put a straw in it, and watched it with Yi Qianqian. She immediately turned off the movie on her cell phone and said, Lily, go and buy groceries. It's already so late. The vegetables won't be fresh anymore. Old Shun, go with her. Shinjulia sat quietly on the side and looked a little bored. Yi Chanqian was keenly aware of that. She immediately turned off the movie on her cell phone and said, Lily, go and buy groceries. Chapter 10:15. Of course, Yu Lily knew what Yi Chanqian meant. Wasn't she trying to create an opportunity for them to be alone? Such an obvious intention. Yu Lily wasn't stupid. However, it just so happened that Yu Lily had something she wanted to clarify with Shun Julia. Without clarifying it, Yu Lily would always feel suffocated. Taking advantage of the situation, Yu Lily went into the room to take her bag and went to the nearby supermarket. Shun Julia could tell at a glance that he had never bought groceries before. He looked left and right. Suddenly, she exclaimed and shouted, Lily, look, this radish looks so strange. Yu Lily turned her head in the direction of the voice and saw that he was holding a radish in his hand. However, this white radish was two radishes joined together. There was an obvious dent in the middle, and in the middle of the two radishes, there was a small radish tail poking out. Shinjulia picked up the radish and smiled brightly. Look at this. Doesn't it look like a family of three? Seeing the bright smile on Shun Julia's face, Yu Lily couldn't bring herself to smile. The corners of his lips twitched as he said, Thank you for the past few days. When Shun Julia saw the change in Yu Lily's expression, he knew that she had something to say. He smiled and looked at her hand that was holding the handle of the cart tightly. Then, his gaze fell on her slightly shrunken shoulders. What are you talking about? Shun Julia shrugged his shoulders and raised his eyebrows slightly. He didn't seem to notice Yu Lily's strangeness. He put the white radish into the cart and said, You don't have to be so polite. We are all friends. Friends, Yu Lily felt a little embarrassed. It seemed that she did not treat him as a friend. Instead, it was a strange relationship, a strange state. Seeing her slightly embarrassed expression, Shun Julia chuckled and said, I know what you want to say, but there are some things you'd better not say out loud. As he spoke, he leaned toward Yu Lily, and his smile became more and more brilliant. Just when Yu Lily thought he was going to say something, Shun Julia's smile suddenly disappeared and turned into a faint smile. He leaned over and tilted his head slightly. Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively wanted to avoid him. Shun Julia's hands moved even faster. He held her head in place and whispered, Don't move. The distance between them was less than 3 centimeters, and they could feel each other's breath. Yu Lily's body stiffened, and she felt a little nervous. Did this guy want to kiss her? However, Shun Julia didn't make any further moves. He said, Look behind me. Is there someone I know there? Yu Lily looked in the direction he was pointing at and saw a tall figure among the women and elderly people who were buying groceries. He was wearing a dark suit with dark patterns. His body was tall and straight, and he was squinting at them. The distance was a little far, and Yu Lily was a little short-sighted. She couldn't see his expression clearly, but she could clearly see who this figure was. The angle was right behind Shun Julia. Yu Lily's silhouette was hidden by Shun Julia's tall figure. From the back, it was impossible to see her expression. From the back, it looked like they were kissing. Chapter 10:16. After Shun Julia said that, he pulled Yu Lily up, put his hand on her trolley, and walked side by side with her. Ming stood behind, watching them cuddle with each other, and his face became more and more gloomy. This is still in public. How dare the two of them be so presumptuous? Have they already? The more Ming thought about it, the more angry he became. Clenching his fists, Ming closed his eyes, turned around, and didn't stay. Seeing Ming turn away, Shun Julia slightly raised his lips, turned his head, and looked at Yu Lily. Yu Lily also looked in the direction of Ming's departure, and her eyes were slightly gloomy. I still can't let it go. How can this be? Yu Lily didn't notice the change in Shun Julia. She inadvertently turned her head and saw the green onions and garlic sprouts placed together. She couldn't help but think of the time when she went to the supermarket with Ming. Ming pushed the trolley and grabbed whatever he saw. Finally, He grabbed 2 bundles of vegetables and asked, "Which is the green onions and which is the garlic?" At that time, she also frowned and asked with a distressed face, "Yes, which is the green onions and which is the garlic?" Lily didn't recognize them at all, so she bought both. After returning home, Lily went to cook, and Ming excitedly jumped over with a tablet and shouted, "Lily, look, this round one is the green onions, and the flat one is the garlic." That smiling face was as bright as the stars yesterday, shining and dazzling. But now looking back, it was very far away. However, it was deeply imprinted in her mind, and it was difficult to erase. Shinjulia found that she was staring at the things in front of her, so he reached out, waved in front of her, and shouted, "Lily." Lily suddenly came back to her senses, turned to look at Shinjulia, and suddenly chuckled and asked, "Tell me, these 2 things, which is the green onions and which is the garlic?" Shinjulia looked at them and said, "The left one is the green onions, and the right one is the garlic." Well, that's right. But Lily didn't know why, but she felt a little lost. With a smile, Lily pushed the cart and looked ahead. She said in a soft voice, "Shinjulia, you know my past. I've cheated a lot of people, and I've been someone's mistress. I've been with Ming for so many years. Why are you still so good to me?" When Shinjulia heard that, his eyes darkened, and he chuckled. "Lily, do you think I treat you well?" Very good. Tisk, if that's the case, it proves that I've succeeded." Shinjulia looked at her with a smile and continued, "If even you think that I'm good to you, doesn't that mean that I'm even better in the eyes of others? The better I treat you, the angrier Ming gets. This guy is so fickle. He's obviously engaged to my sister, but he's not honest. He should be pissed to death." Lily was stunned and blinked her eyes. When Shinjulia saw her expression, he raised his eyebrows proudly. Stealing the woman he likes is the best revenge for him. Don't you think so? Does that mean that Shinjulia is pursuing me just to get revenge on Ming? Don't feel pressured. I'm pursuing you mostly because of my sister. Only by diverting all his attention from you can he treat my sister well, right? Shinjulia's smile didn't change, and his words were very natural. Suddenly, he changed the topic and asked, "I want to eat eggplant. Can you make it?" Yes, eggplant was Lily's specialty. Chapter 10:17. When they got home from grocery shopping, Shinjulia helped Lily in the kitchen while she cooked. But the young master was still the young master. Washing vegetables almost flooded the kitchen, and helping to look after the fire almost burned his own clothes. In the end, he was still driven out by Lily. His days passed by uneventfully. Since that day, when he saw her in the supermarket, he never appeared again. Love Transaction had been online for 2 months, and the number of clicks had exceeded 100 million. Compared with 2 months ago, the website traffic had more than doubled. As an author and an internal employee, Lily not only enjoyed the admiration of all her colleagues, but she was also invited to the office by Editor-in-Chief Zhou. "Little you've been here for some time. In view of your excellent performance, the higher-ups have decided to give you some rewards. What do you want? Just say the word." "Anything I want? Of course, it doesn't have to be too expensive. We have to leave a good impression on the higher-ups, right?" Chief Editor Zhou liked this little girl more and more. Even though the income from comics was considerable, she still worked diligently in the company. Among her colleagues, her performance was second only to Yi Qianqian's. Such achievements were equally impressive. More importantly, Lily was neither arrogant nor rash, and she was very popular in the company. Lily heard Editor-in-Chief Zhou's words and said, "Well, I want to take an early vacation." "Ah, that's it." "Yes, just like that." Editor-in-Chief Zhou was surprised. She thought that she would ask for an expensive digital screen or laptop. According to Yi Qianqian, Lily didn't have a computer. However, when he thought about it, he felt that it made sense. With Lily's current income, she could buy a computer whenever she wanted. Her request was very simple. Editor-in-Chief Zhou nodded and said, "It's almost New Year. When do you want to have a holiday?" "On the 22nd, I'm going to travel." The 23rd was Ming and Shin Manting's wedding. She didn't want to see them happy. Kingstown was so big, and yet so small at the same time. The news of their marriage would definitely spread everywhere. At the very least, there would be one less pure land in the country. Hearing the word travel, Chief Editor Zhou's eyes lit up and she asked, "Where are you going to travel?" Lily smiled. She thought for a moment and said, "Probably to Japan." Lily asked Qianqian not to tell Julia about it. On the night of the 21st of December, Lily packed all her luggage. She looked at the empty room and lay on the bed in boredom. All the important things were packed away. Lily closed her eyes and put the headphones in her ears, listening to the bustling noise coming from the other side. Enrich was discussing the details of the wedding, including the makeup, guests, and hotels. All of these had been prepared, and they were just discussing the optimization. This kind of thorough preparation, this kind of painstaking effort, was so blissful. "Manting, someone's looking for you." "Hey, they're here. Who is it?" Even the reply was brimming with joy. Manting must be feeling very happy right now. Lily felt a little jealous. She closed her eyes, took off the headphones, and threw them aside. Chapter 10:18. Shen Luo was in a good mood when he saw the change in her expression. He looked at her and approached her step by step. Shen Manting looked at him approaching, and her face became paler and paler. She pushed back and shouted, "Sister Zhang, come here." I called Sister Zhang away. "She shouldn't be outside now." The smile on his face widened. "What are you afraid of? I won't do anything to you." "Big brother, I'm getting married the day after tomorrow. What do you want?" "As the big brother, can't I come to see my sister who is about to get married?" Shen Luo and stopped in his tracks and looked at Shen Manting's pale face. His heart sank. "Am I that scary? Why do you have such a big reaction?" Shen Manting had been forced into a corner, and the cold wall was behind her. At that moment, the distance between Shen Manting and Shen Luan was less than a meter. As Shen Luo spoke, his expression was calm. He approached her with a hint of malice. He leaned over, his hands still in his trouser pockets. Suddenly, his lips curved into a smile. "Are you afraid that I'll do it again?" His words undoubtedly poked at Shen Manting's sore spot. One more time. She had been 20 years old when old Mrs. Shun had brought her home. Poor and pitiful, he had accidentally intruded into his forbidden area and was almost torn to pieces by his Tibetan Mastiff. He had saved her, but Shen Luo noticed that Shen Manting's eyes were wandering. He chuckled and said, "You're actually thinking about it?" As he spoke, he reached out and placed his hand on the side of her face. In a low voice, he said, "Do you want me to remind you of that night?" "No." Shen Manting suddenly panicked and pushed him away. "You promised me, Shen Luo, I'm getting married soon. What else do you want? You were the one who chose me. I didn't even have the right to choose. Are you going to go back on your word now? He didn't give you the right to choose." Shen Luo raised his eyebrows and chuckled. "Didn't I give you a choice? Li Xiqing, Ming, and me. As for my two childhood friends, you don't like them, do you?" Li Xiqing's wife was pregnant. "You're my big brother. How could I possibly choose you?" That was why she had chosen Ming. Coincidentally, she had pinched Ming's weak spot. She must marry Ming the day after tomorrow. Otherwise, her life would be ruined. At the same time, footsteps could be heard from outside. It was Sister Zhang. Shen Manting was delighted and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Shen Luo clearly saw her expression and sensed that the footsteps behind him were getting closer and closer. He smiled and straightened up, saying, "As your big brother, I just came to see you. Seeing that you are so lively, I am also relieved. You must prepare well and be the most beautiful bride." With that, Shen Luo really turned around and left. Sister Zhang walked in with a paper bag in her hand. Chapter 10:19. Sister Zhang saw her in a daze and urged, "Come on, eat something. When you are full, you can continue to work. In 2 days, you will be the most beautiful bride." Hearing Sister Zhang's words, Shen Manting smiled, picked up the spoon, and looked down. On the 22nd of December, Lily had already started her holiday, but the plane ticket was booked for 4 a.m. on the 23rd. All day, Lily had been painting in her room. However, She never expected that Su Qianxi would call her. Usually, Su Qianxi was very busy with work, taking care of the children, and having personal space with Li Xiqing, so Lily usually did not talk to her. The two had not contacted each other for half a month. Seeing Su Qianxi's call, Lily was a bit surprised. Holding a pen, she picked up the phone and quickly answered, "Hello. Lily, are you free tonight?" There was a child's voice on the other side of the phone. It sounded like they were chasing and playing. The little girl's voice was soft and sweet. Lily's heart softened, and she nodded and said, "Yes, what's wrong? Let's have dinner together tonight. We haven't been together for a long time. I will take the children with me. They haven't seen you for a long time. Tonight." Lily glanced at her digital screen and nodded. "Okay, where to? Let's go to the place we often go. I don't know any other places. Okay?" The place we often go, it was Palace 1 under the O Group. Oming also often went there. Lily was a bit hesitant. When she was about to discuss with Su Qianxi about changing places, there came the cry of the child, "Mom." When Lily heard his voice, it was as if a soft spot in her heart had been touched, and it immediately sank. Su Qianxi responded and said, "Then it's settled. Let's have dinner together at 7 p.m. Bye." Before Lily spoke, Su Qianxi had already hung up the phone. "Forget it. Let's go. It shouldn't be so coincidental, right?" Lily ignored it and continued to paint. When it was almost 5 p.m., Lily began to change clothes and put on makeup. It took about half an hour to get to Palace 1 by taxi. When Lily arrived, it was exactly 18:53 in the evening. Palace number 1 was a combination of entertainment, dining, leisure, and so on. It was located in a key location and had gorgeous decorations. 1, 2, 3, 10. He leaned against the wall and counted. When he counted to 10, he straightened up, looked around, and shouted, "I'm going to start looking." "Okay." Li Jianyue hid behind the curtains. Her small figure could be seen clearly. Seeing this scene, Li Xiqing could not help but laugh. However, he deliberately looked around and pretended to be distressed. "My little baby, where are you?" When she heard her father's words, Li Jianyue shrank back and the curtains were flattened. The little girl's sweet voice called out, "Daddy, you won't be able to find me. I'm hiding." Li Xiqing laughed out loud and said, "Is that so? Where are you hiding then? I won't tell you. You have to find me yourself." Li Jianyue shouted. Her voice was a little smug. Chapter 10:20. Li Jianyue didn't make a sound. She shrank back, and shrank back. Li Xiqing swayed left and right, and suddenly the curtains were opened. Li Jianyue looked at Li Xiqing in horror. Her big eyes widened, and she shouted, "Dad, caught you." Li Xiqing squatted down and held her in his arms. He rubbed her little head and said, "Dad will take you to wash your hands." Li Jianyue pouted in frustration and shouted, "Why did you find me again? Even Brother Mosen couldn't find me." Li Xiqing smiled. Li Mosen was smarter than any of them had imagined. With his IQ, how could he not find this little fool? He just gave in to her. However, even if Li Xiqing said it, this little girl would not believe it. He reached out and pinched her little nose and said, "Your Brother Mosen has already washed his hands. You are the only one who is disobedient and playful. Do you still not keep your word?" Li Jianyue stuck out her little tongue and reached out to Li Xiqing. "Dad, hug." "Okay, hug." Li Xiqing picked up his daughter and took her to the bathroom to wash her hands. Oming looked at the interaction between the father and daughter, full of envy. Li Jianxian and Li Mosen sat side by side, holding a Rubik's Cube in their small hands. Daisa said, "Uncle, how do you get this red one? You see, yellow, blue, and green are all ready. You just need to get this red to white." Oming put down the teacup, bowed his head, and patiently explained, "You can't just focus on one side. If there's a little disharmony, this is not a complete Rubik's Cube. Come on, you first make this like this, like this." Li Jianxian and Li Mosen were both people with a particularly strong learning ability. The two little guys opened their eyes, looked at the Rubik's Cube in Oming's hand, listened to his explanation, and nodded. Su Qianxi received a call from Lily. She was bored anyway, so she simply stood up and went outside to pick her up. When she saw Lily, Su Qianxi's eyes flashed with amazement, and she shouted, Lily. Yu Lily heard Su Qianxi shout, smiled, and waved at Su Qianxi. Qianqian. Su Qianxi quickly approached and looked at Yu Lily's current appearance. Compared to the last time Su Qianxi saw her, Yu Lily was plumper this time. The flesh on her face had also grown back, and she looked round and beautiful. Her skin was white and delicate, and her skin was tender and elastic. Today, Yu Lily was wearing a red dress and a long black coat. It didn't look like a famous brand, but it was a very stylish combination. In more than 2 months, Yu Lily's hair had been trimmed 2 or 3 times. Her short hair still reached her ears, making her look playful and capable. Her oval face was covered by her short black hair. Coupled with her exquisite makeup, she looked even more beautiful and alluring. Wow, Lily, you've become so beautiful. We haven't seen each other for so long. Su Qianxi went up and took her arm. Let's go. We were just waiting for you. Everyone liked to be complimented, especially by Su Qianxi. Yu Lily felt particularly happy. With a smile, she walked in with Su Qianxi. However, when she entered the door and saw Oming, she paused. Oming seemed to have sensed her gaze and looked up. Chapter 10:21. Ex-boyfriend seeing ex-girlfriend. Yu Lily felt inexplicably embarrassed at the moment. Was it a coincidence? Absolutely not. Yu Lily quickly looked away, looked at Su Qianxi, smiled, and said, Qianqian, is he here too? Yes, of course he is, because it was Oming who called her. However, Su Qianxi pretended to be stupid at the moment, intimately pulled Yu Lily in and said, We are waiting for you. Is there anything in particular you want to eat? No. Okay, then let's serve the dishes. Su Qianxi pulled her to sit down next to her and shouted, Waiter, help us serve the dishes. Su Qianxi poured a cup of tea for Yu Lily and said, How have you been recently? Yu Lily took the tea, smiled, and said casually, Very good. My boyfriend is also very good to me. Much happier than before. Su Qianxi was speechless for a moment, subconsciously glancing at Oming. She saw that Oming was just drinking tea and did not speak. Li Xiqing came over with his daughter, sat next to Su Qianxi, and asked, What do you want to eat? Chicken wings. What else? Chicken legs. What else? Crab. Li Jianyue shouted, looking at the empty table, pouted, and said, Dad, hungry. There will be food in a while. Drink some juice first. Li Xiqing poured a glass of juice for the little girl and handed it over. Drink slowly. Oh. Li Jianyue took it with both hands, holding the juice with her short, fleshy hands. Li Xiqing looked at her, his hand under the glass. In case the little girl could not hold it firmly, he could catch it in time. Yu Lily saw the little girl's face, which looked very similar to Su Qianxi's, pink and tender, and her heart was about to melt. However, in her impression, Li Xiqing, who was cold and terrible, actually had such a soft side in front of his daughter. So envious, Yu Lily looked at the little girl, and Li Xiqing looked down and took a sip of the tea. However, she did not look at Oming again. The atmosphere was awkward. Su Qianxi winked at him from time to time, but he did not seem to understand and remained indifferent. The dishes were quickly served, and the children ate with relish, not noticing the strange atmosphere between the adults. I heard that you took an early vacation and rested for almost 20 days. Oming finally opened his mouth, but he didn't look at her. Instead, he lowered his head and ate slowly. It was obvious who he was talking to. Yes, Yu Lily replied. Traveling. Yes. Where to? I don't know. We'll see. Yu Lily smiled and took a sip of tea. Suddenly, she picked up the red wine glass next to her and reached out to Oming. Master O, congratulations. You're getting married tomorrow. I wish you a happy wedding in advance. Oming's eyes darkened. He picked up the glass of red wine and gently clinked it with Yu Lily's glass. Then, Yu Lily laughed and drank all the red wine in the glass. Cheers. Yu Lily stood up and said, I still have things to do. I'll go first. I can have a good time after I finish my work. Thank you for today, Qianqian. Su Qianxi was embarrassed. She didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, but she felt that Yu Lily's thank you was sarcastic. Blushing when she was about to speak, Lily had already turned and left. Chapter 1022. The distance between Ming and Lily was always maintained at a moderate distance. Lily didn't look back, but she was clearly aware that he was following her. Deliberately quickening her pace, Lily went out the door. It was a little windy outside. As soon as she went out, the wind blew in fiercely, making her subconsciously wrap up her clothes. Seeing her like this, Ming quickly walked forward. Lily heard the subtle footsteps coming from behind, and she quickened her pace. Then, as if she had thought of something, Lily suddenly stopped in her tracks and stood rooted to the ground. Ming hadn't expected her to suddenly stop. Caught off guard, he rushed forward and bumped into her. Lily was hit so hard that she groaned and almost fell forward. Ming was quick to react. He reached out to grab her and held her firmly in his arms. Such a scene made people couldn't help but look at them. She could clearly feel the warmth of the strong arm that was wrapped around her waist. Lily's heart was beating fast. She reached out, took his hand away, turned around, and looked at Ming. The distance between the two was less than 20 centimeters. Ming didn't expect that Lily would face him like this. He looked at her eyes in a daze and couldn't help but be attracted to her. Lily looked up at him. Her eyes were deep and beautiful, as if they were shrouded in a layer of silver light. She looked calm and serious as she said, Ming, let's go to bed. Ming was very surprised and thought he had heard wrong. He asked incredulously, what did you say? Lily looked at him and didn't avoid his eyes. She was calm, but she still firmly said, let's go get a room. Such a bold request was not only beyond Ming's expectation, but also Lily began to doubt whether she was crazy. Seeing Ming's eyes, the impulse in Lily's heart decreased bit by bit. Lily looked down and smiled gently. When she was about to say something, she heard Ming's voice, yeah. A simple single word made Lily's heart slightly hurt. Without warning, the pain made her breathless. But he smiled and said, then you drive the car. I'll go buy something. Ming frowned. After getting the car, he drove Lily to the place she had told him to go. Stop. At the same time, Ming stopped the car. She opened the door and said, wait a minute. With that, she got out of the car and entered a pharmacy. After about 7 or 8 minutes, Lily came out with a bag in her hand. There were 2 glasses of milk in it. Let's go. Lily smiled and sat in the front passenger seat. Ming wasn't in a hurry to drive. He lit a cigarette and asked, are you serious? Yes. You can now. She had done it with Julia before, so she knew it was possible. That's why she sought him out. Ming laughed coldly. Julia couldn't satisfy you, so you came to me, right? Lily's hand holding the bag slightly tightened, and the bag made a rustling sound. However, Lily suddenly turned her head and smiled like a flower. Why did you ask if you knew? Don't you want to? Ming's face suddenly darkened. He turned his head and looked at her like a raging storm, very gloomy. It seems that you really don't want to. Then I'm leaving. Take care of yourself. As she spoke, Lily opened the car door and was about to get out. But she was stopped. Ming locked the door and coldly said, you need to F***CK. Chapter 1023. Ming took Lily to a local 5-star hotel in Kingstown, registered his ID card, and opened a room. As soon as Ming entered the room, he took off his coat. Lily followed behind and closed the door. Ming took off his suit and said, do you want to take a shower first, or should I? Or together? However, Lily did not respond. Ming was a little surprised and turned around, but he was suddenly hugged. Lily looked up at him, breathed quickly, and her body was hot. Her face was as red as a peach. Looking at him, Lily stood on her tiptoes, hugged his neck, and kissed him on the lips. Lily easily entangled him. She closed her eyes, and the heat in her body ignited the deepest and most hidden passion in her. Holding him tightly with both hands, Lily couldn't help but whisper and shout, don't you want to start? At that moment, Lily's face was flushed, and her whole body was attached to his. She was slightly panting, and her breath smelled like orchids, which was seductive and sexy. Oming did not expect that she actually took the medicine herself. Didn't she always refuse this kind of medicine? However, seeing how impatient she was, he decided not to suppress it any longer. He took the initiative, picked her up, and threw her on the bed. Eulily's body bounced, and she groaned. Then, she felt a hot body covering her. His fiery big hands peeled off her coat, and then he tore off her dress. Dense, hot kisses dotted her body. Eulily hugged him, moaned, and unbuttoned his vest, shouting, "Oh Ming!" Oh Ming did not respond to her, but fiercely and heavily sucked on her neck. The hot breath fell on her neck, and the burning feeling spread all over her body. Eulily hooked her legs and shouted, Mr. Oh, I miss you, I miss you, I miss you." Oh Ming breathed heavily, and his big hand clamped her chin. He chuckled and said, "What? Do you regret it?" Hearing that, Eulily opened her eyes and looked at him. His clothes were slightly messy, and his eyes were slightly narrowed, but he was very sober. His beautiful peach blossom eyes seemed to be enshrouded in a layer of hazy silver, bright and resplendent. Eulily's eyes were blurred as she looked at him. She reached out and hooked her arms around his neck. Her face flushed. She smiled and said, "I don't regret it." He would never regret it. When Oh Ming heard that, he opened the zipper on her back, revealing her smooth and fair shoulders, which were round and tender. He lowered his head and kissed her, but it was full of aggression. He held her in a domineering manner. He seemed to have completely let go of her. Under his aggressive attack, Eulily narrowed her eyes. No regrets, no regrets. She had no room for regret. She wanted him. She loved him. Eulily couldn't lie to herself. For so many days, no matter how well Julia had treated her, her mind was still filled with Oh Ming's shadow. Even Eulily herself felt that she was so cheap, but she missed him, but he was about to get married. How could this relationship, which was not supported or acknowledged by others, be allowed to continue? She hugged him back and slightly raised her head. There was an unknown tears flowing down from the corner of her eyes. Eulily opened her mouth to gasp and shouted, "Oh Ming, have you loved me?" Chapter 10:24. It was the first time Eulily had asked such a question. It was also the first time Oh Ming had heard it. It was strange and wonderful. It was as if he had met this person for the first time. Eulily would actually ask such a question. Oh Ming's eyes darkened. Looking at her flushed cheeks, he slightly raised his lips and was about to speak, but Eulily suddenly hugged his neck and sealed his lips. Before Oh Ming could say anything, he was hit by her hotness and disappeared without a trace. The king's sighs gently swayed with their movements, and Eulily's whole body was hot, and she twisted uncomfortably. Oh Ming panted heavily and whispered in her ear, "Love." Eulily's body stiffened. Her hands wrapped around his neck, and she bit his shoulder. He said, "Love? Not love, but love. Is that true? But the words that men say when they are driven by pleasure, can we believe them?" After a rest, Oh Ming pulled away, hugged her, and kissed her neck. Eulily slightly narrowed her eyes, gently pushed him away, and said, "I'm tired. Go take a shower." Oh Ming paused, looked at her slightly tired face, and chuckled. He got up and went in the bathroom. Eulily opened her eyes, got up, and took out the 2 bottles of milk from the pharmacy. She opened one of the bottles and put a white pill in it. She closed the lid, shook it a few times, and then drank 2 mouthfuls of the other bottle. After Oh Ming came out of the shower, Eulily handed the milk to him, holding a half-empty bottle in her hand. Oh Ming happened to be a little thirsty, so he glanced at it, took the milk, and drank 2 mouthfuls. Seeing this, Eulily's eyes darkened. She stepped into the bathroom, and when she came out, Oh Ming was already asleep, and the bottle of milk had been drunk. By the time Eulily got dressed, it was already past 1 o'clock in the morning. She gently kissed him on the lips and whispered, "Goodbye, Mr. O." This sleeping pill was enough for him to sleep until noon the next day, and she was already in the sky. Looking at his face greedily, Eulily lay down, picked up her phone, and took a photo. The last photo. This would be the last time they would see each other in this lifetime, right? Lily's eyes were sore. She curled up beside him and gently hugged him. Her voice was choked and low like a mosquito. Goodbye. The sky was still dark when they boarded the plane. Everything was still in a hazy state, and the bustling big city was gradually getting farther and farther away. Lily looked down at Kingstown, and her eyes gradually became empty. Lily closed her eyes and leaned back in her seat, her mind blank. When Ming woke up, it was past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. When he got up, there was no one around. Ming felt a little dizzy. He patted his head and frowned. He felt like he was still dreaming. Everything around him was cold, and there was no sign of Lily. Not only was there no shadow, there wasn't even a trace of his existence. Could it be that he was dreaming? An erotic dream left no trace. The phone was vibrating, and it was the special assistant, Su Chung. Chapter 1025. When Ming heard Su Cheng's words, he felt even more confused. He didn't know how to respond, so he just hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, Ming found that there were dozens of missed calls. Shin Manting, his family, Su Chung, and all kinds of unknown calls. The wedding started at 2 o'clock, and now it was 1 o'clock. If he went there now, it was still not too late. The timing was really good. It could not only make Shin Manting anxious, but it would not delay his wedding. It turned out that Lily was so thoughtful. I really didn't expect it. However, Ming lay in bed and didn't want to move. The phone continued to vibrate, but Ming ignored it and lay on his back with his eyes closed. The deal with Shun Luo and was achieved. Shin Manting had never felt so desperate as today. Ming hadn't come yet. Hadn't come yet. Hadn't come yet. Countless calls were made, but no one answered. The scene was in chaos, all because of Ming. However, what made Shin Manting even more desperate was Shun Luo, who was sitting not far away and looking at her with a faint smile. She was even more furious. Shin Manting gritted her teeth and dialed Ming's cell phone number again and again. But the result was still the same. Shin Manting's eyes became redder. She walked into the temporary bridal room in the hotel and sat down. After driving everyone out, Shun Manting leaned on the sofa weakly. If Ming didn't come then, Shin Luo would never let her go. Absolutely impossible. She looked down and found it was already 2:13. It was a mess outside, and the noise made Shin Manting's head buzz. How could it be? Bastard. Shin Manting's eyes were red, and she threw the phone in her hand. The phone was deformed. After a few jumps, it finally fell to the ground, and the screen was broken into a spider web. Such a temper is really not suitable for a bride. A teasing voice came in, and Shin Manting's body stiffened. She turned her head and saw Shin Luo walking in slowly with his hands in his pockets. He looked like he was smiling, and it seemed that his eyes were filled with pity. Shin Manting saw him and suddenly stood up. She roared with red eyes. "Is it you, Shin Luo? You are so despicable. What's wrong with me? I'm not the one who ran away from the marriage. But you should be glad that you haven't gotten a marriage certificate. Otherwise, you will have to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce. It will be too embarrassing." Shin Manting breathed more quickly, and she was furious. She stepped forward and raised her hand to slap his face. However, it was Shin Luo's to her. Shin Luo took the opportunity to pull her over. He placed her hand in front of his nose and sniffed it. He chuckled and said, "You want to hit me? That is treason." His casual words made Shin Manting feel even more humiliated, and tears welled up in her eyes. She was so embarrassed and angry that she forcefully pulled her hand back and roared, "Bullsh asterisk T big brother, you pervert." Shun would not treat his sister like Shin Shun. Ming Tiang to up and said, "Shun was that Shun. To shun was very felt. Shun was not Tiang. To. Ming. That to of to Shun to Ming to." Chapter 1026. Shin Manting suddenly felt a sense of crisis in her heart. She pushed him hard, but he didn't move at all. Shin Luo looked at Shin Manting in front of him and whispered, "Don't be afraid. Ming is not with you. I will give you happiness. just like last time? Shen Manting's eyes widened in horror. She pushed him away and shouted, "No." The sound of footsteps coming and going could be heard from outside, as well as the noise of the crowd. The gentle smile on Shen Luo's face became more and more serious. He gently released her and said, "You can't know until you try." After that, he took 2 steps back, and the distance between them was a little bit. Then, the door was opened. Shen Manting didn't notice that someone was approaching. At this moment, the door was suddenly opened, and her heart skipped a beat. Then, seeing Shen Luo's calm appearance, she knew that he must have noticed it and let her go. Yi Yu saw Shen Luo and Shen Manting's appearance inside and felt inexplicably strange. However, Shen Luo's expression didn't seem to be different. Is it an illusion? Yi Yu was confused, but she didn't think much about it. She said, "Grandma asked you to go out." "Got it. We'll be there soon." Shen Luo smiled and looked at Yi Yu. His eyes were as usual, and there was nothing wrong with them. However, Shen Manting's heart was secretly guilty. If he wasn't a pervert, why would he only react to you, my sister? So what about Yi Yu? If he is only interested in Shen Manting, then Yi Yu, as his real wife, is... The more Shen Manting thought about it, the more she felt that she was guilty. She looked at Yi Yu, and Yi Yu looked at her at the same time. She smiled at Shen Manting and said, "Aunt, let's go together." Shen Manting felt more and more guilty when she was called aunt. She nodded and didn't dare to look at her. She said, "Okay." Yi Yu took Shen Manting's arm and subconsciously glanced at Shen Luo, and, on the other hand, looked calm and unperturbed. He looked no different from usual. Is it an illusion? Su Cheng's phone was full of calls, but he still couldn't find out where Ming was. In the face of everyone's questions and expectations, Su Cheng could only remain silent and escape. However, just as he found a quiet place to rest, he received a WeChat message on his phone. It was Ming. "Find out where you Lily went." Su Cheng saw this message and replied without thinking, "Japan, their editor-in-chief, told me." Ming did not reply. Looking at the message sent by Su Cheng, he was lost in thought. The most famous romantic city in the world was covered in white snow. Blonde men and women walked to and fro, wearing thick down jackets and hats that covered their bodies tightly. Yu Lily wrapped herself in the thick down, and even her breath was filled with white vapor, which made her shiver. Looking at the snowflakes falling from the sky, Yu Lily felt that the trip was not in vain. So beautiful. Picking up the phone, Yu Lily took pictures left and right. Looking at her red cheeks in the photo, Yu Lily smiled and quickly entered the nearby shopping mall. Chapter 10:27. After eating, Yu Lily returned to the hotel. After a long flight, Yu Lily felt a little tired. But after taking a shower and lying down, she couldn't fall asleep. Her mind was full of messy thoughts, and even Yu Lily didn't know what she was thinking. She simply got up, took out the digital screen, plugged it in, and began to draw. The phone was not turned on, and Yu Lily didn't bring a computer with her. She didn't dare to go online, turn on the computer, or see any news about Ming. It was already dark outside. At this time, Ming should have just woken up. Or is he still in bed with Shen Manting? Yu Lily's hand holding the pen paused, but she couldn't calm down. What a draw. Putting down the pen, Yu Lily put on her clothes again and deliberately wrapped herself up. A red scarf and a red hat covered her face. After making sure she wouldn't get cold, she walked out of the hotel. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the nightlife in Paris had just begun. Yu Lily walked around and stopped on a path. There were many footprints on the thick snow, and on the bare trees, ice and snow piled up. It was much more spectacular than when it snowed in the capital. Unfortunately, it didn't snow in Kingstown. It seemed that she hadn't seen the snow with Ming. What a pity. Master I checked. I didn't see you Lily on the flight to Japan. Su Cheng's voice was a little guilty, and he asked, "What should we do now?" Ming's face became more and more serious. "Find out if she is in the country." "Yes." Su Cheng responded, and Ming quickly hung up. After hanging up, Ming still called his most reliable brother, Luo Zhan. Nothing was faster than directly hacking the system to find out. After going through the process, maybe you Lily had gone far? After calling Luo Zhan, he was silent for a moment and said, "Brother, do you want to hurt me? That is the national security system. If I hack in, what if I get caught? I'll protect you." "No, you'd better go through the process. Last time I helped Lao Air check the police, and I was almost caught. This time, you directly asked me to hack the national system. I don't have that much courage. With your skills, there is no problem. Luo Zhan, please. It's not that I'm helping you, it's too risky. You seem to like the mall in the south of the city, right? For you." Luo Zhan, Ming's department store in the south of the city, was the most profitable, and he actually gave it to him? Luo Zhan almost choked on his saliva and asked incredulously, "What did you say?" "I said, help me investigate. I'll give you the department store in the south of the city." Luo Zhan almost knelt, but he also realized the seriousness of the situation. "I don't want the mall, but you can give me some shares to play with." "Okay." Ming agreed without hesitation. "Hurry up." Luo Zhan was puzzled and asked, "Is it really urgent?" "Hurry." "All right, wait for me." After Luo Zhan hung up the phone, he was clearly aware of the contemptuous eyes coming from the side. Luo Ren was eating when he saw him hang up the phone. He said leisurely, "If I had known that being a hacker was so lucrative, I wouldn't have majored in psychology. It would have been much better to focus on technical skills." "It's too late." Luo Zhan put down the phone and stopped eating. He said, "Remember to wash the dishes later. I have to go." Chapter 1028. While Luo Zhan was investigating, Ming didn't relax. He went to the house where Yu Lily was living and found Yi Qianqian. When Yi Qianqian saw him, she recognized him at a glance. She crossed her arms and teased, "Hey, isn't this Mr. O who's running away from his wedding? What are you doing here? Running away from your wedding and coming to our house?" His tone was a little bitter and impolite. Ming pursed his lips and looked at her. "Do you know where Yu Lily went?" "I don't know," Yi Qianqian replied and prepared to close the door. However, Ming reached out and blocked the door. He asked again, "Where did she go?" "Who knows? Maybe it's Korea." She looked at Ming and smiled. "Isn't it a little late for you to come looking for me now? I don't even know where Lily is." "Didn't you go to Japan?" Ming looked at her, and there was a hint of surprise in her eyes. Seeing this, Ming was even more certain in his heart. "You Lily went to Japan." Yi Qianqian averted her gaze and sneered. "It's none of your business." With that, he slammed the door shut. He quickly turned around and asked Su Cheng to book the fastest ticket to Japan. He went back to get his passport and rushed to the airport without even unpacking his luggage. He boarded the plane. It took more than 5 hours to fly from Kingstown to Japan. Japan was 1 hour faster than China. It was noon in Kingstown, but by the time they arrived in Japan, it was already evening. As soon as he got off the plane and turned on his phone, he received a message from Luo Zhan, as well as countless missed calls. He clicked on the text message sent by Luo Zhan and saw the place at first glance. Paris. Yu Lily slept until dawn. As soon as she got out of bed, she turned on her phone. After turning it on, he noticed that there were a lot of missed calls. A few dozen belonged to Ming, a dozen belonged to Yi Qianqian, and 30 to 40 belonged to Shun Julia. The rest were Su Cheng, Su Qianxi, and editor-in-chief Zhou. Yu Lily was inexplicably surprised. There were so many people looking for her. Why? Other than phone calls, there were also many short messages. "Qianqian, where are you? I've been looking for you for a long time. Qianqian, call me when you see it. Shun Julia, she actually went to Japan without telling me. That's too much. Shun Julia, Qianqian has told me everything. Where are you in Japan? I'll find you. Shun Julia, in any case, I'm still your boyfriend. How dare you act first and report later? You deserve a beating. I'll teach you a lesson when I find you. Shun Julia, big sis, why haven't you switched on your phone yet? Don't you know that turning off your phone isn't a good habit? Shun Julia, I think I know where you are. Wait for me. Don't go away. Chief Editor Zhou, is Japan fun? Chief Editor Zhou, don't forget to submit the manuscript. Special Assistant Sue, miss you, where are you? Special Assistant Sue. Young Master O is very worried about you. Can you give me a message as soon as possible? Yi Qianqian. Lily, what should we do? It seems that Ming knows you went to Japan. Yi Qianqian. But it should be fine. Japan is huge. It's not like we'll bump into each other, right? Lily read through them one by one, and her lips curled up. He replied to Yi Qianqian. I'm not in Japan. I'm in France. Chapter 1029. Yi Qianqian. That guy seems to know that I know you are in Japan. Do you think he's already gone to Japan? Ha 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 ha. Lily smiled and was about to reply, but when her finger just touched the screen, she suddenly received a call. As soon as the phone came out, the answer button was immediately pressed. Lily was a little confused. Looking at the call interface, she suddenly felt a little confused. Shun Jilia's voice came through the phone. Lily had no choice but to pick up the phone. Shun Jilia's voice came through the phone, and he shouted, Lily, where are you? Isn't your sister married? How do you know that I'm not in China? Lily sat on the bed and felt a little helpless. Don't say it. I don't dare to stay home now. Where are you? France? Where's France? I will find you. No need. I will just play here for a few days. It doesn't matter. Just tell me the address, and I will find you. Shun Juliet did not hear Lily's reluctance at all. It just happens that I haven't taken a vacation for a whole year. It's a good time to play. No need. You find a place to play by yourself. That's all. Goodbye. Lily hung up the phone and then breathed a sigh of relief. Shun Juliet called again, and Lily directly hung up. But soon, she received another call. Ming. She hung up the phone and put his number on the blacklist. Then, she went to wash up. After going downstairs to eat, Lily went out the door. It was very cold that day, very cold. There were pedestrians talking and laughing with each other. Everyone's mouth was emitting white steam, but everyone looked so happy. Lily unconsciously walked into a ski resort and was pulled in by an auntie who sent a flyer. After paying, Lily put on ski boots and started to ski on her own. However, Lily did not dare to move too much. She saw many people talking and laughing while skiing, and her eyes were full of envy. Perhaps it was because she was alone and pitiful, or because her black eyes and yellow skin were special. A woman who looked to be in her early 30s came to Lily. She was very beautiful and spoke French that Lily did not understand. However, Lily finally realized that she wanted to teach her how to skate. Lily nodded happily and began to learn with her. A&M was a very cheerful girl. She came here with her boyfriend. Although Lily couldn't understand what she was saying, neither could she understand what Lily was saying. Using the translation software, they chatted happily. The day passed quickly. In the afternoon, Lily learned that her name was A&M. For lunch, A&M treated her to local delicacies. For dinner, of course, Lily had to return the favor. Lily took her to the hotel where she was staying for dinner. She looked at the way they were leaning on each other and felt a little envious. Soon, A&M went back with her boyfriend. They blew each other a kiss but didn't leave any contact information. When Lily returned to the hotel, she needed to swipe her card to enter the elevator. As soon as she walked up the steps, Lily lowered her head and fumbled for the key card. However, before he could pass through the lobby, he saw a man standing not far away from him. He was wearing a dark suit with a black coat and a dark gray scarf around his neck. However, it still looked a little thin in such weather. Lily was shocked to see the man. Chapter 1030. Seeing the man's face, Lily's heartbeat sped up involuntarily. Lily turned around and walked out quickly. Unfortunately, the man had been waiting there for a long time. Seeing that Lily wanted to run away again, a pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes suddenly narrowed. He quickly stepped forward and reached out to hold Lily's hand. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She struggled hard, but she quickly remembered something. She turned her head and smiled like a flower, like an old friend she hadn't seen for a long time. What a coincidence! You're here, too? Ming saw her smile and felt it was even more dazzling. His eyes darkened, and he pulled her back and said, Unfortunately, I am here for you. Hearing that, the smile on Lily's face could no longer be pretended. Lily pulled her arm hard and frowned. She was very resistant to pulling her arm back, but Ming still held it tightly and didn't let go. Lily was very angry. She looked at him and sneered. What are you doing? Aren't you married? Are you pestering your old lover now? Ming looked at her, grabbed her, and slowly said, No one has ever dared to run away after sleeping with me. Lily, you are good. Huh? Who is sleeping with who? You are obviously having a better time than me. Lily roared. Let go. If you don't let go, I will scream. Go ahead and scream. Let's see who can understand what you are saying. Ming's lips curled up into a bad smile. You can really run away. You lied to me to go to Japan. Do you know how many flights I had to take to get here? Lily heard that and felt a chill in her heart. This guy really came here to find me. But how did he know I was here? Lily saw the evil smile on his face and felt inexplicably a little flustered. She desperately stepped back and struggled to break away from his hand. She shouted, It's none of my business. You can go wherever you want. You are so old, and your wife doesn't care about you? Since you can't control yourself, enchanting is not to be trifled with. I'm not married. Ming pulled her back and said in a low voice, I'm thinking about how to punish you. Not married? Lily was stunned and looked at him in disbelief. Is that true? Your wedding was so grand. How could there be no marriage? I said that I wouldn't marry her. We didn't get our marriage certificate, and we didn't have a wedding. Ming looked at her with a serious expression. As for you, Lily, she looked at him for a while and sneered. So what? Do you think that I will be with you when you are not married? I have a boyfriend now. Who do you think you are? Ming's face finally darkened. His big hand grabbed her wrist, and his face was indescribably gloomy. Seeing this, the sarcasm in Lily's eyes deepened, and she sneered, What's the point of following you? Isn't it just a mistress? If I'm with Julia, at least I'm his girlfriend, the official kind. Please let go, Mr. O. Lily. Ming finally couldn't take it anymore. The two of them were in the lobby of the hotel. Chapter 1031. The crowd was looking at them, and Lily felt a little embarrassed. She lowered her head and said, You'd better let go. If you don't, I'll scream. Enough. Ming lowered his voice as if he was dealing with an ignorant child. Which room do you live in? Does that mean I have to live in the same room with her? Bah! Lily's face changed, and she turned her head and shouted, Save him, I don't know what. Ming's face was even more ugly, and he covered her mouth. Lily struggled hard, her hands flailing, and she looked unwilling. Facing the eyes around him, Ming's face was very interesting. He smiled and said in fluent French, She is my girlfriend. It's just a quarrel. It's okay. Lily heard the French and looked at him with wide eyes. This guy actually knew how to speak French. Ming looked at her, hugged her hard, dragged her into the elevator, and said, Let's go up first. However, Lily's struggle was getting farther and farther away, and soon it attracted the attention of the security guard. The security guard ran up with a stick in his hand and shouted, Hey, hey! Ming stopped and looked at the eyes around him helplessly. The security guard went forward and hit Ming's hand with the stick. It was not light or heavy, but still hurt a little. After releasing his hand, Lily immediately ran away. Her face was red because of his hand, and she hid behind the security guard. Ming raised his hands and said helplessly, She's my girlfriend, and we quarreled. Then he reached into the inside pocket of his coat and took out a business card. This is my business card. I am a friend of your hotel owner. The security guard took the business card, and it was all in English. He didn't understand it, so the security guard looked at her suspiciously, pulled him, and said, Come here. Lily saw Ming being pulled to the front desk, and she quietly walked toward the elevator. Ming turned his head and said something to the security guard. The security guard turned to look at Lily, waved at her, and said something that Lily couldn't understand at all. Lily refused, and after swiping the elevator, she was pulled by the security guard and walked toward Ming. When Ming saw the security guard tugging at her down jacket, his face darkened. He said, Don't pull me. In Huaxia, this is called sexual harassment. When the security guard heard that, he immediately let go. Ming registered his information at the front desk and booked a room. Sir, may I know your phone number first? Ming turned his head and told her the number. But when he turned his head, he found that Yu Lily had already wandered to the door. Seeing her run away, Ming narrowed his eyes and shouted, "Yu Lily, come back!" But when Yu Lily heard that, her body stiffened and she ran outside. Ming had a headache and chased after her. It was a world of ice and snow outside, and everything was covered in pure white. The ice on the ground was very slippery, and Yu Lily almost fell several times. But when she turned her head and saw Ming chasing after her, she didn't dare to stop. What was he trying to do? Why did she run? I don't know. But she did not want to see him, did not want to be with him. Although she was secretly happy that he said he was not married, she still needed to verify whether he was married or not. Looking back and seeing Ming chasing after her, Yu Lily walked faster, but her foot was slippery and she fell on the ice. Ming followed and saw that she was wet, so he smiled helplessly. Dash. Chapter 10:32. He walked quickly toward her. Yu Lily saw his footsteps coming and quickly wanted to get up. Just as she got up, her feet slipped again, and she fell down again. Ming went forward and lifted her up under her armpits. Seeing her dressed like a dumpling, he said with a smile, "Fortunately, you are wearing thick clothes, or you will hurt." Ming patted the snow on her body and looked at her helplessly. "It's cold outside. Let's go back to the hotel and talk." He looked like he was coaxing a child. "What the hell?" Yu Lily's face became serious. She turned around and said, "I have nothing to say to you. You can go. I came to find you, and I will take you with me." "To find me?" Yu Lily's heart fluttered. She turned her head and sneered. "Why do you want to find me? I am not your wife." But after saying that, Yu Lily felt a strong sense of jealousy. "What the hell?" She turned her head and saw Ming with a faint smile on his face. Yu Lily wanted to bite her tongue, but soon she put on a straight face and said, "Sure enough, Qian is right. You're a scumbag. On the one hand, you don't let go of your old mistress, and, on the other hand, you are reluctant to give up the Shun family." Bah! Ming was even more helpless. He frowned and reached out to pinch her nose. He said, I said I am not married. How many times do I have to say it to make you understand?" Yu Lily slapped his hand away irritably and said angrily, "Hey, I don't believe it. If you want to break off the engagement, you would have done it long ago. Why wait until now? Go back and talk slowly. I'm so cold." Ming hugged his arms and looked like he was freezing. He said, "I haven't eaten yet. I have been waiting for you all afternoon. Take me to eat something." "Go away. Go by yourself. It's none of my business." Yu Lily looked at him and shook his hand off. "I have a boyfriend now. He is coming. If he sees us, it will be bad." Ming's heart sank again. What little patience he had had was almost worn out. His face was not very good. He said, "Break up with him and be with me. I will marry you." It was a domineering order, but the last three words made Yu Lily's body stiffen again. In this kind of situation, saying those three words was like giving alms to her. Yu Lily turned around and glared at Ming. She pushed him away and turned to walk in the other direction of the hotel. The road was very slippery, and one had to be careful when walking. Otherwise, one could fall at any time. Being pushed, Ming almost slipped, but he quickly steadied himself. However, Yu Lily had already run more than 10 meters away. Sigh. Ming felt a headache coming on. When this woman became stubborn, she was like a crab. "You stop." But Yu Lily didn't listen. She turned her head and shouted, F***CKU. Who wants you to marry me? You be *TCH, I don't want you. Yu Lily. Stop. Ming was so cold that he was shivering. He chased after her with cold breath. "I have a secret to tell you." "Really, wait for me." Yu Lily didn't listen at all. She just went into a coffee shop. Ming chased after her. The coffee shop was so warm that he sighed. When he looked for Yu Lily again, she was gone. Chapter 10:33. Looking at the back door on the side, Ming sighed heavily again. He walked out of the back door and looked around, but he didn't see Yu Lily. He shouted, "Yu Lily." No one answered. Instead, many French people looked in Ming's direction. Ming breathed, looked up, and saw Yu Lily walking near the amusement park in front of him. This woman, how old is she to play hide-and-seek with me? Ming walked toward the amusement park with his long legs. Yu Lily seemed to notice that he was chasing her, so she ran again. When Ming saw that, he took big strides and chased after Yu Lily. When he caught up with her, he found that she had disappeared again. I'm starving. Ming hadn't eaten all day, and now he ran such a long circle. He was hungry, sleepy, and cold. Ming decided not to run anymore and stopped. He picked up his mobile phone and called Yu Lily. As expected, he couldn't get through. He called Luo Zhan and said, "Keep an eye on the registration of Yu Lily's passport. If there is any movement, inform me." After hanging up the phone, Ming returned to the hotel where Yu Lily was just now. He ordered something to eat first and sat in the lobby, waiting for Yu Lily to come back. It was impossible for Yu Lily not to return to the hotel. The more she avoided him, the more he had to stay there. However, before Yu Lily could get there, an unexpected but unsurprising person came to visit. When Shun Julia saw Ming, he sneered and put his luggage at hand. He was not in a hurry to get a room, but he called Yu Lily in front of Ming. When Yu Lily received the call from Shun Julia, she was still hiding in the coffee shop outside. When she saw it was Shun Julia, she immediately picked up, "Hello." Shun Julia looked at Ming and said to Yu Lily on the phone, "Which room are you staying in?" Hearing that, Yu Lily was shocked and suddenly asked, "Are you in Paris?" "Yes, I also arrived at the hotel where you were staying." "How do you know?" "I didn't tell you." Yu Lily exclaimed and couldn't believe it. "Yi Qianqian told me. I'm already at the hotel. Come and pick me up." Shun's words made Ming's eyes narrow dangerously, and he looked at him unkindly. Compared to Ming, Shun Julia appeared calm and unperturbed. He looked at Ming and sneered. "Why are you here? Are you chasing after my girlfriend?" "Shun Julia, I didn't expect you to run away from the marriage. You're a bastard, a coward." Shun Julia looked at him coldly. "If you can't give my sister a future, why did you provoke her? Now you're pestering Lily. Are you crazy? It's none of your business, but I advise you to break up with Yu Lily as soon as possible. You won't have a happy ending. It has nothing to do with you. Yu Lily is my girlfriend now. Who do you think you are?" Shun Julia smirked. "I'm sharing a room with my girlfriend. It's not up to you to decide what happens." Ming's face suddenly darkened. He gritted his teeth and took a step forward. He raised his hand and punched Shun Julia's cheek. Shun Julia didn't expect him to suddenly attack. He was not prepared for it, and the punch hit his face. Shun Julia took 2 steps back before he stopped. Chapter 1034. Just as Shun Julia was about to retaliate, he heard Yu Lily's footsteps behind him. Yu Lily's footsteps were easy to recognize. Shun Julia paused and looked at Ming with a sneer. "You're already married, yet you're still trying to be a third party. Don't you feel ashamed? Do you really think Lily still likes you? I'm the only one in her heart now. As for you, just take good care of my sister, brother-in-law." They were all married people. Brother-in-law. Sure enough, Ming was already married, right? She knew that if Ming wanted to break off the engagement, he would have done so long ago. Why wait until now? Yu Lily's footsteps were getting slower and slower. When she heard this, she stopped, panting slightly. Ming narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous aura emanated from him. "Shun Julia, you know." Shun Julia acted as if he hadn't heard Ming's words. He turned around and saw Yu Lily in a red down jacket. She wore a lot of clothes and looked like a dumpling. Shun Julia's face hurt, but when he saw her expression, he couldn't help but curl his lips and say affectionately, "You're back. Where did you go?" Yu Lily didn't answer. Instead, her gaze fell on his face. A bruise suddenly appeared on Shun Julia's originally fair and clean face. It looked swollen. Needless to say, it must have been Ming. Yu Lily turned her head and glared at Ming. She scolded, "Ming, are you crazy? If you want to go crazy, you could just go crazy in China. Why are you going crazy in Paris?" Ming's expression became even more unsightly. That punch didn't make him feel any better. Instead, it made him feel even more aggrieved. Yu Lily's eyes were filled with guilt. She reached out to touch Shun Julia's face and asked softly, "Are you okay?" Shun Julia shook his head and said, I'm fine. It doesn't hurt. How can it not hurt? It's green. The guilt in Lily's eyes deepened, and she glared at Ming angrily. Barbaric. When Ming heard that, he laughed in anger and said, Lily, what kind of attitude is that? You actually sided with this guy and scolded me? Are you blind or deaf? Can't you see my attitude? Lily wasn't polite at all. She immediately said in an angry voice, Get lost? Okay? I don't want to see you at all. I've never seen anyone as annoying as you. Forget it, Lily. Shinjulia reached out and gently held Lily in his arms. We don't own the hotel, and Paris doesn't belong to us. He can go wherever he wants to go. Let's go back and put my things in the room first. Lily was stunned. From his tone, it seemed that he wanted to stay in the same room as her. That's not a good idea, right? When Shun Julia saw her like this, he rubbed his bruised cheek and said, Can you help me with a hot compress? It really hurts a little. Lily looked at the wound and sighed in her heart. She nodded and led Shun Julia to the elevator. Ming's face darkened. He sneered and said, Now, are you bringing all the men into your room? You just had sex with me 3 days ago. What did you say before that? Why don't you tell your boyfriend? Lily's back stiffened. Facing Shun Julia's gaze in front of her, she felt as if she had been stripped naked. It was indescribably embarrassing. Chapter 1035. Lily turned her head and frowned. She looked at Ming and shouted, Shut up. Ming didn't seem to notice her anger. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, and he stepped closer to her. He said word by word, So, one is an emotional dependence, and the other is a physical release, right? Shut up. Lily was so angry that her eyes were red. She reached out and was about to hit Ming. However, Ming grabbed her arm and pulled her back. In a low voice, he said, I didn't know that the woman I slept with for so many years was so greedy and scheming. Young Master Shun, do you want this kind of woman? Lily felt very embarrassed. Her eyes were red. She tried to withdraw her arm, but it was held tightly. When Shun Julia heard this, he laughed out loud. There was no displeasure on his face. He held Lily's hand and looked at Ming at the same time. She is the woman I chose. No matter what, I can't let others take advantage of her. Brother-in-law, please let go. We have to go back to the room to sleep. Ming didn't expect Shun Julia's attitude. He laughed and said, Really? But after she tried me, I'm afraid she won't be used to being with you. You don't have to worry about that. We will solve our own problems, and she and I are very harmonious. At least, when she faces me, she will not be frigid. Because they had never done it at all. He didn't know whether Lily would be frigid. When Ming heard that, his face darkened. In an instant, the two of them confronted each other. There seemed to be an invisible war going on between Ming and Shun Julia. They were fighting each other subconsciously, and they were equally matched. Let go. Lily's eyes were redder, and her voice was choked with a little unhappiness. I know how I am. Since you want to compare, you can compare. I won't play with you. Every word that came out of their mouths seemed to be deliberately humiliating Lily. This was especially true for Ming. Every sentence he spoke was ruthlessly slashed down, bringing with it traces of blood. Every slash was fatal. Seeing her like this, Ming's heart trembled, and he quickly let go of her. Shun Julian naturally took her hand and said, Goodbye. With that, he held Lily's hand in his left hand and carried his suitcase in his right as he walked toward the elevator. Lily took out the key card, swiped the elevator, and turned to look at Ming before stepping into the elevator. Ming looked at their backs, and something in his heart suddenly fell, causing him to sit down on the sofa. They were really together. Originally, Ming was still holding on to his wishful thinking, but now that he had seen it with his own eyes and heard it with his own ears, all the wishful thinking had been crushed by reality, leaving no trace. Lily had originally planned to live alone, so she had only booked a standard room. Seeing Shun Julia pull his suitcase in, Lily's heart was pounding. She looked at Shun Julia and asked, Do you really intend to stay here? When Shun Julia heard that, he turned his head to look at her, With a bright smile, he asked, "Can I?" "No, of course not." Eulalie looked at Shun Julia and frowned. She looked at him and said, "Shun Julia, you know, I don't like you." Chapter 1036. Hearing this, Eulalie paused for a moment. Then, she bit the bullet and nodded. "It doesn't matter." Shun Julia walked toward her and quietly approached her. "I don't mind." Eulalie resisted and took a step back, avoiding his eyes, and said, "You'd better get another room to sleep." I don't want to sleep with you. This should be direct enough, right?" "But is it too direct?" Eulalie didn't dare to look up at him and waited for his answer. However, Shun Julia didn't speak for a long time. On the contrary, Eulalie couldn't help but look up at him. Shun Julia's expression was calm, and he looked no different from his usual self. However, at that moment, his big, round, and clear eyes seemed to have a deeper meaning. Seeing Eulalie look up at him, he stepped closer and said, "You were with him 3 days ago?" Eulalie looked up at him and didn't speak. "That day was the day before my sister's wedding, right?" Eulalie looked away and didn't answer him directly. "Have you seen the news recently?" Shun Julia looked at her with a cold look. No, she didn't dare to look at him. She was afraid that if she saw him too happy, she wouldn't be able to control herself. Shun Julia slightly raised his eyebrows and said, "The wedding was very successful, but he came to Paris to find you during the honeymoon. If you had a little self-awareness, you would have driven him back and let him stay with Shinmanting. In this way, he wouldn't pester you." Eulalie bowed her head and said, "Well, I know. You go and get a room. I want to sleep." Shun Julia looked at her and chuckled. "I was just a shield, and then I was useless?" Shun Julia didn't want to leave at all. He still stood in front of Eulalie, lifted her face, and said, "I'm your boyfriend, and I'm sleeping in the same room with you. Why can't I?" "Shun Julia, you knew I would be like this. Why did you come to me? Then why did you sleep with him a few days ago when you knew he was married?" Eulalie was rendered speechless by his question. After a long pause, he finally said, "I didn't know that he would chase after me. After I came to Paris, I planned to find a small mountain village to settle down in, and then I wouldn't go back. Who knew that Oming would find her? She had no idea that Shun Julia would come knocking on her door. Their appearance had disrupted all her plans. Shun Julia stared at her and said word by word, "Eulalie, you still can't let him go, can you?" Eulalie was silent. Shun Julia knew that it wasn't something that could be easily let go of. However, he still felt uncomfortable. Shun Julia lifted her face and asked, "Why can't he, but I can't?" "Shun Julia, thank you for treating me so well. So you're giving me the good guy card? You're going to tell me to scram after you're done, right?" Shun Julia looked at her and suddenly sighed. "Eulalie, isn't it a little unfair for you to do this?" Eulalie slapped his hand away and did not speak, but her eyes were full of apology. Shun Julia stared at her for a long time and said, "Forget it. I'll move out. You have a good rest." Eulalie's face had a hint of relief. Looking at Shun Julia turning around, she felt lucky. However, Shun Julia suddenly turned around, stepped forward, held Eulalie's face in his hands, bowed his head, and kissed her. Chapter 1037. She stared at Shun Julia in front of her in disbelief. Seeing that his eyes were also wide open, Eulalie couldn't help but resist. Shun Julia was slightly surprised and raised his eyebrows. The unexpected softness on his lips, with a faint aroma of coffee, was like smooth and tender jelly. Eulalie tasted better than he had imagined. But before he had time to taste it carefully, Eulalie pushed him away with both hands. In front of him, Eulalie was so angry that she was short of breath. Shun Julia saw this and smiled brightly. Interest. After that, he opened the door and walked out. The whole room was so quiet. Eulalie saw that Shun Julia's luggage seemed to be still in the room. It was just a light kiss, but it made Eulalie feel uncomfortable for no reason. She didn't know why she felt uncomfortable. She pursed her lips and turned into the bathroom. Oming had also kissed her, but the feeling was completely different. After turning on the water, Eulalie wiped her mouth with the cold water. She rinsed several mouthfuls of water in a row, but the discomfort did not ease. Instead, it became worse. In the mirror, Yu Lily's face was covered with water. The water was a little cold. Yu Lily lowered her eyes, dried her face, and went out. She opened the door and saw Shun Julia coming from afar. After pushing his suitcase out, she went in and locked the door. Seeing this, Shun Julia chuckled and pulled his suitcase into the room opposite Yu Lily's. It was a quiet night. Yu Lily slept for 3 or 4 hours, and she couldn't fall back asleep. Her mind was full of thoughts. She got up and painted all night. Yu Lily didn't lie down until the sky outside was bright. While she was in a daze, the doorbell kept ringing. She looked through the peephole and saw it was Shun Julia. Yu Lily didn't open the door and said, "I am sleeping. Don't wake me. I will continue to sleep." "Well, then remember to get up for breakfast." Yu Lily ignored him, turned around, and continued to sleep. Outside, when Shun Julia turned around, he saw Ming looking at him from afar. Ming raised his eyebrows slightly, looked at him, and laughed out loud. "Didn't you say that a couple should sleep in the same room? This is a room?" Shun Julia didn't expect Ming to live near this corridor. He smiled and said calmly, "She wasn't ready yet, so I waited for her. After all, men always have to be patient with women, don't they?" Hearing this, Ming was in a better mood. He nodded and said, "That's right. I didn't expect young Master Shun to be such a gentleman. It's a good thing. You flatter me." Shun Julia smiled. Just as he was about to say something, Ming opened the door and walked into the room. The smile on Shun Julia's face suddenly disappeared. He looked at Yu Lily's door thoughtfully. When she woke up, it was already noon. Yu Lily's stomach was growling. She got up and was washing up when she heard the doorbell ringing. Yu Lily wiped the foam off her face with a towel and looked through the peephole. It was a hotel attendant. Opening the door, the waiter pushed the dining card in. On the dining card, there was a note with bold and forceful handwriting. "Enjoy your meal." This was Ming's handwriting. Did Ming know where she was? Opening the lid, there was a simple cheese sandwich and a bottle of milk. Chapter 1038. After the waiter pushed the dining card in, he bowed slightly to Yu Lily and said in poor Chinese, "Please enjoy." "Thank you." Yu Lily put down the lid and looked at the breakfast. She was not in a good mood. After eating breakfast listlessly, she looked at the time and found it was almost 12 o'clock. Today was a sunny day in Paris, and it was bright outside the window. After Yu Lily put on her clothes, she took a small bag and went out. The tallest building in Paris, the Eiffel Tower. Yu Lily was careful all the way, for fear of meeting Shun Julia or Ming. Thank God, they didn't seem to notice her. After taking a taxi to the Eiffel Tower, Yu Lily bought a ticket and went inside. There were a lot of people, but compared with the legendary crowds, Yu Lily felt it was bearable. Yu Lily lined up and took the elevator. She looked out of the sightseeing elevator. Finally, almost all the people came in, and the elevator door was closed. There were a lot of people squeezed in, but it was not crowded. The elevator gradually rose, and Yu Lily looked out at the white sky that was gradually rising. Her eyes were glued to it. So beautiful. The scenery on the ground gradually moved away, which was a completely different feeling from sitting on a plane. There seemed to be someone squeezing behind her, but Yu Lily clearly felt it, but she didn't care. Her eyes looked out, and it was too much for her eyes to see. Beautiful? A low voice sounded in her ear, and Yu Lily's body was stiff, and the smile on her lips slightly froze. Looking sideways, she saw a thick black coat with a dark gray scarf. His skin was a little yellow compared to those white people next to him, but it was a very healthy buckwheat color. Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat. She looked up and was met with a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes. "It's him." Ming lowered his eyes to look at her. Then, he looked up at the vast expanse of white outside. "It's so beautiful." Yu Lily looked at Ming in a daze, but she quickly retracted her gaze, looked outside, and nodded her head. The elevator stopped halfway, but Yu Lily and Ming didn't get off. Yu Lily clearly noticed that Ming's hand was slightly close to her waist. Yu Lily was stiff, turned around, and looked at Ming. Ming looked at her and smiled. "You lied to me." Yu Lily didn't understand. She swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue and looked at Ming with surprise. You and Julia are not a couple, are you? They did not sleep together. There was nothing between the two of them, right? If Lily accepted him, no matter what, Julia would never sleep across from her. If Lily accepted him, even if she didn't want to let Julia touch her, she would let him have sex with her. Thinking of this, Ming's eyes were burning. He looked at Lily, took a step closer, put his hands on the bulletproof glass behind her, and whispered, "Stop it. Come back with me, okay?" Lily looked at him. She leaned her back against the railing and looked at him with her eyes wide open. "I know you're angry with me. It's my fault. I've gone too far. I'm not good. I have a cheap mouth. You can hit me or scold me. Come back with me. I'll take you to see my parents. I'll introduce you to all my relatives and let them know you." Chapter 1039. Hearing that, Ming had a helpless look on his face. At the same time, the elevator had reached the top floor. The people in the elevator went out. Ming straightened up and pulled her out. He gritted his teeth and said, Lily, you were trying to piss me off." When Lily heard his obviously unhappy voice, she was a little angry, but before she could speak, she was pulled outside. As soon as she came out, the biting cold wind made Lily shiver. Lily hugged her arms and had the illusion that she was going to be frozen into a popsicle. Seeing this, Ming sighed helplessly, unbuttoned his coat, pulled her into his arms, and held her in his coat. Sure enough, hugging is so much warmer. Lily reached out and touched his body. It felt like a cashmere sweater, but she couldn't feel how many pieces he was wearing. It was very warm, but also very thin. Ming felt the cold wind pouring in and subconsciously hugged her tighter. Many people looked at them, and there was envy in the eyes of the girls. Ming whispered in her ear, gritted his teeth, and said, Lily, do you really think that I'm married, Shinmanting? Such a big thing. Haven't you seen the news? His tone was a little bad, but it also revealed that he was full of sadness. He looked as if he had been angered to the point of anger. Lily looked up at him and remembered that Julia had asked her the same question yesterday. Have you seen the news? Seeing Lily's confused face, Ming wanted to bite her to death. He said fiercely, In order to find you, I have run away from the marriage. What else do you want? Lily's ears seemed to hear the wind. Ming's words, together with the cold wind, made her a little stiff. What? Did I hear it wrong? Because of me? Run away from the marriage? Lily felt a little strange and unbelievable, but she quickly denied it and said, Impossible. If you want to break off the marriage, why wait until the wedding to run away? Isn't that looking for trouble? Ming is not such a person. You really don't watch the news. Ming was defeated by her. He picked up the phone and searched. Ming runs away from the marriage. Sure enough, there was a lot of news as soon as it came out. Breaking news. The young master of the O clan is dissatisfied with the marriage of the Shun clan's daughter and runs away. Scumbag or true love. A second-generation rich man abandons a rich girl for a mistress. Another good man has fallen. A blessed newlywed escapes from their wedding. Lily read them one by one. She clicked her tongue and found it hard to believe. Really? Are you blind? Ming fiercely pinched her face. His face was full of helplessness, but when he saw her expression, he was full of surprise. However, he still deliberately said with a sullen face, Such a big thing. The domestic network is going crazy, and you still don't know. Lily's neck shrank back at the sound of such a low growl. These few days, in order to avoid the news, she did not even connect to the internet. She basically relied on text messages and the ITU to communicate. Hearing such big news, Lily still found it hard to digest. Looking up at Ming, she asked again, Really? Chapter 1040. Lily was about to refute, but Ming continued to say, You let me run for nothing, but why did you hook up a gigolo to be cannon fodder? Yesterday, I almost believed it. If I hadn't seen Julia knocking on your door from the opposite room. I don't know what he will do. However, life is really full of excitement and surprises. Fortunately, He didn't leave yesterday. Otherwise, he wouldn't have encountered such a thing. Lily felt more and more guilty. She couldn't help but look up and refute. Didn't you always believe that he is my boyfriend? Why do you suddenly not believe it? I never believed it. Do you really think I am stupid? Even if you want to find another man, you should find someone like me. A gigolo is not your cup of tea. As he spoke, he took out a small black box from his coat pocket and stuffed it into Lily's palm. He ordered, "Open it." Lily's heart suddenly sped up. Looking at the small box, she blinked her eyes. Is this a ring? But who give a ring like this? It's so fierce. How is it a proposal? Lily raised her eyes and looked at Ming with dissatisfaction. Ming looked away at the moment, as if he didn't care whether she opened it or not. Lily put the box in her pocket, but before she put it in, she was pulled up by Ming and said, "Open it." Ming's unhappy warning inexplicably made Lily feel better. Reluctantly, she picked up the small box. The design of the box was very clever and exquisite. After looking for a long time, Lily found a small notch. She pressed it, and a heart-shaped red box was pushed out. There was a button in the middle of the red box. Lily pressed it, but suddenly there was a loud noise in her palm. Lily was shocked. She reflexively yelled and threw the box in her hand. However, the box in her hand seemed to grow in the palm of her hand, and she couldn't get rid of it. Lily felt a chill on the ring finger of her left hand. She raised her hand and saw a beautifully designed diamond ring on her hand. The ring on her hand was designed with wrought tan, and the main ring was a beautiful and brilliant pink diamond. There was a circle of small diamonds around it, which looked very attractive. The entire surface of the ring was designed in the shape of a cartoon cat. It was cute and playful, yet gorgeous and exquisite. So beautiful, so familiar. This was the design she had seen in Ming's study that year. Lily looked at the ring and was slightly stunned. This ring was actually on her finger? Ming held her hand gently. His pair of shimmering eyes seemed to be sparkling, rippling with bright light. Ming lowered his voice and said word by word, "Marry me. In the future, you will be my Mrs. O, my wife, the real one. No matter what, I'm still his girlfriend, the genuine kind." When Lily heard that, she chuckled. This fellow actually imitated her words. What are you laughing at? Ming was a little annoyed, and his cheeks involuntarily reddened. Looking at her appearance, he was so angry that his teeth itched. Are you laughing at me? Lily smiled, looked away, and shook her head. No. Chapter 1041. Lily's smile widened unconsciously. She turned her head slightly, put her hands around his waist, and asked, "Are you cold?" Changing the subject? Ming was a little unhappy. He pressed her down and said, "I'm cold. It's windy up there. Let's go down. Don't you want to play a little longer?" They had just come up. "If it's too cold, we won't be able to play anymore." Lily smiled and pulled him. "Put on your clothes. Will you marry me or not?" Ming didn't give up at all. He looked into her eyes and said, "You've already accepted the ring. If you don't marry me, I'll jump down from here with you in my arms." Lily laughed and felt like a fool. She looked up and stood on her tiptoes to kiss his lips. She said, "Marry me, marry me. Let's go back." Ming was surprised when he heard that. The slight nervousness in his heart instantly turned into joy. Looking at Lily in front of him, Ming was overjoyed. He hugged her tightly in his arms and shouted, Lily, this is definitely the wisest thing you have ever done in your life." Shameless. Well, I'm shameless. I want a wife. Ming was ecstatic and kissed her hard on the face twice. Such an action caused a huge stir in the eyes of the people around. Many people looked over. Some were envious, and some were incredulous. Lily blushed and pulled him. "Let's go. There are so many people watching." Unexpectedly, Ming not only didn't avoid her, but looked up and shouted in French, "I'm so happy. My girlfriend has agreed to marry me." Hearing that, the people who came to play around all exclaimed. Someone took the lead, and suddenly there was a thunderous applause from the top of the pagoda. Thank you, thank you." Ming smiled with Lily in his arms. "Let's go, wife. Wife, The two completely unfamiliar words made Yu Lily's heart beat fiercely. She looked up and saw Ming's serious and deep eyes. They were as bright as the stars last night, beautiful and magnificent. Yu Lily's face was burning. She couldn't help but stand on her tiptoes and kiss him. However, Ming was even more direct. After holding her firmly, he lowered his head and kissed her deeply. The soft touch had a strained electric shock. Ming pried open her lips and teeth in a domineering manner and gradually went deeper. He stroked her cheek with one finger and inserted the other 4 fingers into her hair. Yu Lily felt as if her breath was being taken away. In the unusually cold air around her, her lips, face, and heart were burning hot. So warm, so warm. The surrounding crowd was in an uproar. Exclaiming, clapping, and whistling sounds came one after another. Yu Lily's face burned even hotter, but she didn't avoid him. Instead, she gently responded. She wrapped her arms around his waist and didn't let go. In the face of such a response, Ming felt his heart itch and palpitate incessantly. He loosened his grip on her gently and pulled her towards the elevator. The wind was strong above, but it was much warmer below. When the taxi reached the entrance of the hotel, Yu Lily's phone rang. It was Shun Jilia. Ming glanced at her, then pulled her up the steps of the hotel and into the lobby. He asked, "Why didn't you answer it?" Yu Lily hesitated for a moment before answering the phone. Chapter 1042. Did Yu Lily make up with Ming? Shun Jilia put down the phone, hung up, and walked in Yu Lily's direction. Looking at Yu Lily and Ming, he asked, "We're going to get married." Ming took Yu Lily in his arms and announced his ownership. Looking at Shun Jilia, Ming smiled and said, "Yu Lily has just accepted my proposal. You have no chance, fake boyfriend." When Shun Jilia heard this, his face suddenly changed. He looked at Yu Lily and found that she did not speak or refute. He suddenly felt a little funny and asked, "Really?" "Yes." Yu Lily nodded and raised her hand to show the ring that Ming had just put on her finger. "Really?" Shun Jilia looked at the ring and felt that it was indescribably dazzling. How could this guy agree so easily? What are you thinking? He used to be so mean to you, and you can still forgive him. He almost raped you in public, and Yu Lily's heart felt like it was stabbed by something, and it was burning. Ming's face changed, and he said angrily, "Shut up. Am I wrong? To treat a woman like this? Ming, do you still think you're a man? Do you think you're worthy of her?" Shun Jilia sneered. "Lily is more suited for someone better, and I'm that better." This matter was a thorn between Ming and Yu Lily, and it could not be easily removed. Ming's heart suddenly panicked. Looking at Yu Lily, his hand holding her hand became tighter. He was afraid. Yu Lily clearly felt the change in his mood, so she looked up at him. "But you lied to me." Yu Lily looked at Shun Jilia. "You know what I am afraid of? Ming and Shin Manting are not married at all, but you told me that their wedding was very smooth." "Shun Jilia, why did you lie to me?" Shun Jilia looked very calm and said, "I don't want you to be with him." Ming's face became more serious, and he sneered. "You are a mistress, and yet you are so self-righteous." "Well done, Mr. Shun." However, Shun Jilia acted as if he hadn't heard her and said, "He doesn't deserve your love. No matter how much you love him, how he treats you, don't you think it's unfair?" As he spoke, he looked at Yu Lily and said, "When you were cold, he didn't accompany you through it. Otherwise, you would have been cured by now. This disease is not incurable. As long as you adjust your mentality, it can be cured." But he not only didn't help you, but also said such harsh words to you several times. Can you bear it? Shun Jilia, shut up. There's no need for you to meddle in our affairs. I am her doctor. Her illness is my business. Shun Jilia said firmly as he looked at Yu Lily. Ming's face darkened. It was precisely because Shun Jilia was her psychiatrist that he understood her so well. Shun Jilia knew very well how much power his words had over Yu Lily. Ming panicked. He held Yu Lily's hand and whispered, "Let's not listen to him. He is up to no good. Let's find other psychiatrists. All of them are better than him." Yu Lily pursed her lips and looked at Shun Jilia in front of her. She felt a little complicated and said, Mr. Shun. Mr. Shun. Before, she had either called him Shun Jilia or Jilia. It was the first time that she had called him so strangely. Chapter 1043. Thank you for this period of time. I also know that you are very concerned about my affairs, but I have my own choice. I can't lie to myself. I just like him, I love him, and I am willing to be with him. I'm sorry during this time You Lily felt a little guilty. During this time, You Lily really wanted to develop a relationship with Shun Jilia. Yi Qianqian was right. If she wanted to end a relationship, she had to start a new one. However, she couldn't forget seeing her expression. Shun Jilia shook his head helplessly and said, Forget it. Since you have made up your mind, I won't meddle in your business anymore. But Lily, you deserve better. This man is a scumbag. With Yu Lily's words, Ming's mood calmed down a lot. He looked at Shun Jilia and chuckled. Young Master Shun, I'm a scumbag. What about someone who doesn't know how to snatch someone's love and keeps asking my girlfriend to leave me? Shun Jilia smiled. I just feel it's unfair for Lily. I think you feel it's unfair for Shenmanting, right? You know what kind of feelings I have for you, Lily. So in order to avenge your sister, you encourage my woman to leave me, right? Ming looked at Shun Jilia and said, If you have time to deal with me, it's better to guard against your good brother. Big brother? Shun Luoan? Shun Jilia felt a little strange when he heard Ming's words. Yu Lily was also shocked and looked at Ming. Does he also know something? The relationship between Shun Luo and Shen Manting is unclear. If Shen Manting didn't get married, Shun Luo wouldn't let her go, right? Shun Jilia looked at Ming, trying to find something fishy on his face. But Ming snorted and said, Do you know why I ran away from my marriage? I think you already know the secret between my family and your family. Yes, the Shun family were all doctors, and Shun Luo's main focus was on chemical medicine. When he heard that Ming's mother had a strange disease, Shun Luo became interested. Who knew that he would actually develop a drug that could control the disease by accident? However, it was only control. Logically speaking, for his mother's sake, even if Ming was unwilling to marry Shen Manting, he would still have some scruples. However, on the day of their wedding, he embarrassed Shen Manting so much. Such a matter was unprecedented in the entire Shun family. The old lady was angry several times because of this, but there was nothing she could do. Upon hearing Ming's words, Shun Jilia's doubts, which had been burning in his heart, suddenly grew stronger. I made a deal with your eldest brother. Ming looked at Shun Jilia's suspicious expression and smiled. As for what the deal was, it's not convenient for me to reveal it. You can ask Shun Luoan. However, there was no doubt about it. The reason why Ming ran away on the day of his wedding was also because of this deal. Shun Jilia couldn't figure it out. Why would Big Brother do that? In this way, although Shun Manting would suffer the most, there was no doubt that as her maiden family, the entire Shun family would be disgraced. Shun Luo had always been a person who valued his family's reputation. How could he have reached such an agreement with Ming? Strange. Chapter 1044. Ming was calm and said, If there is nothing else, we will go. Young Master Shun, please take care of yourself. Then he held Yu Lily in his arms and walked toward the elevator. Shun Jilia, on the other hand, stood rooted to the ground, deep in thought. The third day of the runaway marriage. Shen Manting still locked herself in the room and didn't see the light of day. She didn't want to go out at all. She ate and drank in the room. It was not only because she was in a bad mood, but also because she didn't dare to go out. She was afraid to see Shen Luoan. At the same time, she wanted to show off to the O family. Now, the media outside were all reporting on Shun Manting's situation, and they were also constantly monitoring Shen Manting. As long as she gave the outside world the illusion that she had been sad, then the O family was likely to change their mind. After all, Ming didn't have the final say in the O family. As long as she worked hard, maybe she could really marry Ming. No matter what, she couldn't be involved with Shen Luo. She couldn't. Shen Manting stood in front of the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. There were water drops on her face, no makeup, messy hair, and pajamas. Her face was pale. Sister Zhang was a little worried about Shen Manting's situation. She knocked on the door several times, but no one answered. While panicking, she didn't dare to act rashly. She listened carefully to the movement inside. Just when Sister Zhang was considering whether to find the key to open the door was directly open from the inside. Shen Manting didn't look very good. Sister Zhang was a little worried and said, "Miss, do you want to go out for a walk? You haven't gone out for several days. You will be suffocated." Shen Manting always liked to move and didn't like to be quiet. If it were in the past, it would be impossible for her to stay quietly like this for a few days. These past few days, he had been acting strangely. It seemed that Ming's runaway marriage had brought a huge blow to her. Thinking of this, Sister Zhang felt pity in her eyes, and her heart didn't feel very good. Shen Manting saw her emotions and said, "I'm fine, Sister Zhang. You go ahead. I'll sleep for a while. If I need you, I'll call you again." Sister Zhang nodded and said, "Okay, then remember to rest well. Don't let your imagination run wild. Okay?" "Well, thank you, Sister Zhang." Shen Manting smiled and closed the door. Sister Zhang was a little worried, but she really had other things to do. She looked at the door and quickly left. Shen Manting locked the door, then lay down and fell into a deep sleep. In her dream, Shen Manting walked to a river. Ming was enjoying the shade under a big tree by the river. When he saw her, he smiled at her and reached out his hand. Shen Manting paused for a moment. After some hesitation, she walked toward him, but soon she heard laughter coming from behind her. She looked back and saw that it was the mistress that Ming had kept for many years. Shen Manting watched as Lily walked towards Ming, and then the two of them hugged each other happily. Shen Manting stood rooted to the ground and stared at them in a daze. After a while, a tall figure descended from the sky. Shen Luo's gentle face had an indecipherable smile on it. He pounced on her and pressed her into the river. Shen Luo's face was as gentle as jade. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.